Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 390. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. I gotta go right now, Sean, because the future me is building a bridge in my backyard. So says the sensei of the whatnot, Segulin, and the Duke of You-Know.
How's it going, hey?
On this episode, we're talking about C2E2 news. We have a special tribute to Jamie D from Comic Geek Speak, who passed away this week. Just some quick personal thoughts on Jamie. And really, I'm just going to say that we're dedicating this episode to Jamie in theme. You know, the whole love for comics and being able to share the love for news and things that are going on, the excitement. Jamie was so much a rich part of that. If you've been a listener of Comic Geek Speak, that the whole theme of this episode is really just kind of celebrating love for comics and creators and what they do and bring to the table, which so much is who Jamie D was. So that's what will be about this episode because we miss him. And we are also going to be discussing The Flash, number 30, and The Flash Annual, number 3. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network, the DC Infinite Podcast Partnership, and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. Sponsoring this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, they are advertising Grayson number 1, written by Tim Seeley and Tom King. Art team, Mikhail Janin, Andrew Robinson, Dick Grayson, former sidekick, former superhero, former deadman, and now agent of Spyra. A thrilling new chapter of Dick Grayson's life begins in this new ongoing series. It's a super spy thriller that will shock you and prove one thing. You might think you know Nightwing, but you don't know Dick. This is a $2.99 book, 50% off only $1.49. I'm a big fan of when DCB Service does this. When they recognize a new series coming out, let's do it at the 50% discount. Give people a chance to jump on. They usually do these discounts for a couple months afterwards. They do all kinds of crazy cool bundling deals, recognizing the fact we're ordering early and we want to jump onto these series. So hopefully Grayson's going to be one of those series. Speaking of that, over at InStockTrades.com, their sister site, they have a Nightwing New 52 sale. This collects the first trade paperback, Volume 1, the second trade paperback, Volume 2, and Volume 3. It's basically the first 18 issues of the series, including issue number 0. And this is done by Kyle Higgins. The first trade paperback is $14.99 regularly, 45% off, $8.24. The second one is the same price point. The third one is a $16.99 trade paperback. It's only $9.34. So it's a great way in under $30 to get caught up on Nightwing all the way through issue 18. So it's a cool opportunity to do that. I want to thank DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. Reminder that DCBService.com is a digital partner. If you have a Comixology account, that's a great way to get your books. So if you go over there, link those accounts to your DCB Service site, you start collecting 5% of those orders and purchases towards your DCB Service order. That also works for their My Digital Comics site, which is also attached there as well. So just some food for thought if you are doing your digital shopping. Mr. Segulin, what kind of a podcast are we?
Well, Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plot lines, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on the show. So, if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
So, was that done by the future misguided you or the present day you?
Well, that was the present day me.
Okay.
The future misguided would have been something more like the Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. So we go in depth in plotline stories and whatnot of the comics we're discussing in the show. So if you haven't read the book, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show. He's a lot faster than I am.
Or he's on helium. One or the other. I'm not quite sure. And with that, let's talk some comics. I wanted to shout out real quick the sad news of the passing of Jamie D from Comic Geek Speak. Jamie, I got to know before we were podcasting. I was a fan of Comic Geek Speak. I went to their early anniversary shows. One of the things that immediately struck me about Jamie, both on the podcast and off the podcast, is how genuine he was. He was, a fan's fan. He was not afraid to be who he was, to share his opinion, to share his love for the medium, but the industry in general. Jamie was one of those guys that talked creators and really pushed the idea of, hey, we got to get to know who these people are. A lot of what we do on the show with shouting out the creators at the beginning and trying to get to know names, even though we butcher them so horribly, that comes from thematically, I think, subconsciously from Jamie D. Because honestly, he was one of those guys when he came on, whether I agreed with or disagreed with his opinions about things, his opinions mattered to me because there was always a reason behind it. It always came from an intelligent standpoint. It wasn't about being snarky or bashing. If he disliked something, there was something as a fan that drove it. So his commentary was one that always mattered to me. One of the reasons why we podcast is because of Jamie D. I have mentioned on the show many times that Comic Geek Speak was the launching point. But even beyond just the podcast, I think my sense of community on the internet with fellow comic book fans, listeners of our show, listeners of Comic Geek Speak, listeners and podcasters, and there's so many categories, bloggers, so many people that we're interconnected with now. When you go to a convention anymore, it's not an isolated experience. There are all kinds of people you run into that maybe you intended to meet from the get-go. Maybe you meet in passing that you didn't realize was going to be at the convention, but you know each other from the internet and these mediums. And if it wasn't for shows like Comic Geek Speak and people like Jamie making this matter to us, making us comfortable with being who we are, none of us would be here today with this. They changed fandom, and Jamie is one of the architects of that. They didn't plan that, but there's something to that. Jamie was one of the kindest people. Besides comic books, he was a huge fan of Doctor Who. We've had many discussions about it when we've been together in person or online via Facebook. He's just one of those guys that I care a lot about and will greatly miss. And for those that are extremely close to Jamie in the sense that you were local to him, whether you're friends or family or whatever, my heart goes out to you, but also to the larger fan community that became an extended family of Jamie's. My heart goes out to you as well, because it was a very, very sad week, what's going on with Jamie.
Yeah, this is a tough one. He was just an absolutely wonderful guy, and I didn't have the as much interaction as you had with him, but it was weird. Every time I did see him, I did run into him, I never felt like I felt like I was his friend. I felt he had that presence and just that that comfort and that genuineness with him, that I was just sitting there hanging out and talking with him, even though like you had this much closer connection to him, you had this better friendship and just longer depth, but I never felt like an outsider with him. I always felt like I was part of the group with him as well, and that's it's sad to see him go, but everything just my thoughts and my prayers are out to his close family and friends, because he was just an absolutely wonderful guy.
You touched on something there, though, that I think is a key point of why I always found him so endearing. It didn't matter how long you knew him. Like, when you think about it, when we went to those conventions and things, there were people that he's known for years and years and years, intimately. He made you feel like you were just as important. And he was one of those type of guys. It didn't matter how close you were to him or how many times you talked to him. He made you feel like, you were valued for being there. Because why do we go there? Because we're fans. You know what I mean? And I think that says something about the quality of a human being, that there isn't like this weird hierarchy. It was more of he was genuinely glad to see you, wanted to talk to you. And that experience, I think, is shared no matter how many times you talk to him. Your first time talking to him, you have that experience. That's the kind of guy that he was. And there's something to be learned from that. People leave a legacy, and that legacy is in the way that they touch other people. Jamie left a huge legacy because of what I think you just cut it right to the chase right there. That type of interaction is something that we should all value. That's something that Jamie left as a legacy, which I think is really cool. One of the websites that I really enjoy visiting, if not daily, it's at least every other day, multiple times a week, is at dcinfinite.com. I love seeing news, and they're my source now because they cover everything. One of the things that I came across is, I'm a geek for this, Batman Day. DC has announced there's going to be an official Batman Day. It's July 23rd. And they announced all kinds of things that are going to be going on with it, but it's going to be also tied into libraries, which Saturday, July 26th, is going to be a Batman Day at like 1,000 libraries across the country. But July 23rd on Batman Day is going to see the launch of 2 new titles, Robin Rises Omega and Grayson. For me, both are titles that I'm excited about. Robin Rises I was not familiar with that was coming, but this is building to a big event that will pay off in December that will see the return of Robin. Who Robin is, which Robin it is, we don't know. But this is leading to a big event. And I like that it's going to be something that's stretched over time. And I guess where I'm getting that from is I'm enjoying so much the 0-year event because it's an origin story that's told at a pace where I feel like I'm getting some new material from it, some new excitement from it. The idea of building this Robin Rises event, with everything that's been going on so well in Batman and Robin right now, the idea that Robin Rises, Omega, is going to be building towards a December reveal of who the new Robin is going to be, whoever it is, I'm excited for that. I want to build. And that's something I think they're doing really, really well. But the idea of a Batman Day honoring, the whole concept of Batman, 75 years of something that's really mattered to so many people and still continues to be relevant and matter today. Batman's been a character that has changed over time, evolved over time, while still keeping significant core values to him. And he's shown that there's a legacy. There's very few characters, there's very few concepts that have still consistently existed throughout an entire 75-year span without dropping at some point. Batman hasn't dropped. It's been there. And when I say hasn't dropped, I mean, sure, there's been, waves and troughs as far as, sales, but the character has always been present, always been available for fans to access. That just is amazingly cool. And I'm glad that they're honoring it so well. And I'm glad that it's going to happen at libraries, too. I'm glad there's a separate event that's happening at libraries. Because I think, in literature, Batman is a character that should be acknowledged the way that you would other events. And I'm going to make it a point to try on that Saturday to hit a library. And just to, that's holding something with the event. Just because I want to be a part of that side of it, too. Obviously, the 23rd, Batman Day, I'm going to a comic shop. But I also want to go to... Because comic shops are going to probably be doing really cool stuff.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah. Because I got the one by me that does some really neat stuff. Like with the free comic book day, they do big events. So I'm assuming they're going to have something big for Batman Day. And maybe it's time to pull out the cape and cowl.
Well, let's try to on the 23rd maybe meet up.
Okay.
We can go to we'll go to your comic shop. Yeah. And we'll go to dinner or something.
Cool.
I think it'd be kind of cool just to kind of celebrate the whole thing. I think it's cool. I mean, just why not? We haven't done anything like that in a while. I think it'd be fun. And I encourage all of you to do that. Get together with some friends on the Batman Day and celebrate it. I liked that whole midnight thing they did when they launched the New 52.
Yes.
And so, I don't know. I'm just glad that they're doing more events. And I hope they publicize this. I hope it brings people in. And I don't know. He's a character that I think, obviously has a universal draw. I wonder how many people, if you advertise it right, you'll get that were like fans of the Nolan films, just for example, maybe who don't go into comic shops. Who'll come and pop by just because, hey, I'm a Batman fan. Let me go see what this is all about. And I think it'd be a good time to do it. So it's neat.
Yeah. Now, with the Robin Rises, because that was something that whenever we talk about Damian, I always throw around, I don't know if I want him back. I keep saying I don't want him back, but then I'm like, I don't know. And you get the name Tomasi attached to it. So I'm like... he's one of those creators where if I see his name on something, I immediately have a comfort level. I'm like, okay, he's a very talented writer. I'm comfortable with if he brings back Damian, he's going to do it correctly. But it's that mixed feelings. What's your line on this?
I think you said it best. With Tomasi's name attached to it, I could care less who it is. If Tomasi's got a story he wants to bring back Damian, he's going to do it right. If it's another character, he's going to do it right. I'm excited. And I mean, that's just, I don't need it pinned down right now. I actually like the mystery.
Yeah.
Like, to me, I'm excited for the mystery. And I hope that the mystery is protected as long as it can be. And maybe I'm missing, maybe there's something that's, somebody saying it's right in our face right now and who it's going to be. I don't. I think there's a lot of candidates on the table right now. I do think Damian's one of them.
Oh, definitely.
And I would be thrilled to see, because to me, Tomasi's Damian is so good that I would be thrilled to have him have that character back. Here's the beauty of it, though. Whoever the character is that's going to be Robin, however this plays out, I like that this is something that's going to kick off in July and end in December. And there's something to that, because there's Omega that's going to happen in July, and it looks like Robin Rises Alpha is going to be in December. That's a good way to do it. Build the event. This whole... the death of Damian and how it's played out in Batman and Robin in particular, I think has just been really great for us as fans. It's added to me a sense of depth and reality to the story. Like, I like the escapism. One of the things we've touted since Batman and Robin has launched, and one of the reasons why the book is so endearing to us, has been the way that it's gotten to the sense of family, of the Batman family. who these characters are to each other, what they mean, from the interactions between Alfred and Batman to Alfred and Damian to Batman and the rest of the Batman family, from Dick Grayson to Jason Todd to Tim Drake. This has had, that whole movie night issue is probably going to go down on my short list of one of my favorite Batman stories of all time because of the fact that I wanted to be sitting there having popcorn with these people.
Oh, God, yeah, yeah.
I mean, and that to me that's a testament to the writing style and getting to the core of who characters are. It wasn't about explosions. It wasn't about, intense amounts of violence. It was really about getting at the core of the relationship of this family of characters. And that issue just worked so well for me. That just shows that comic books, superhero characters in general, can tell any kind of story. But comic books in general can. I mean, it's not a medium that's stuck to one thing. The high character drama in that particular issue just really stuck for me. That's great writing. You can do that. You don't need the explosion to make it work. You need the character interaction to make it work. So that's why I'm with you. The name makes it more to me. Where are you at? I mean, are you are you worried about who the character might be? There's not a right or wrong answer to there. I don't have that emotion. I really don't. And I'm just being honest.
I am not worried at all because of creative team. As I said, there's some writers that, Gail Simone, Jeff Johns, Tomasi, those are names that if I hear they're attached to it, I have no fear. I know it's going to be awesome because they're amazing writers. If it had been somebody else, then there would be fear, trepidation. It's more of a what's going to happen, who's it going to be. It's the anticipation and the excitement of it. Because once again, when you have a talented writer, they can swerve you. Because Damian's right now has the main target, but then you've got a lot of other possible candidates, or it could be somebody out of the woodwork that we don't even see coming. They could do something completely different and change things up on us. And I don't know how they're going to play it or how it's going to go down. So I'm curious. I'm excited. It was one of those things. I was reading through the C2 news. And I was like, Red Robin Rises. Wait, what's this? Tomasi. Okay. So I was like, dang, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and that's the stuff when I see those announcements. It's where news sites really, I think, DC Infinite, one of the things that they did really well. They got to the core of when they knew, they attached creative to certain events. And I like that focus because that to me as a fan matters. I like to know who those creative teams are that are on it. I think the current Batman creative team, I'm talking about the Batman creative team, I'm talking about globally. And all these books. I'm really excited right now to read Batman material. And that's due to the wonderful people that are attached to it. I mean, yeah, I'm a Batman guy, so it's not real hard to get me excited to read Batman books. But when you've got special creators attached to these titles, and I'm talking about the extended titles, like I'm excited for Grayson, I'm excited for Batgirl every month, Batwoman, it's everything in the whole universe. They've got great creative teams right now that are really telling interesting stories with these characters. It makes it that much more special when they're characters that you're already involved in. But then there's creators that are just making you go, oh my gosh. Every month there's a story where you're like, they just keep, upping the bar. That's a testament to a character family. After 75 years of being available, you can still do that. And I like the new people that they're throwing into the mix. And in Batman Eternal, we're starting to spotlight some characters gradually. We saw that in the preview issue. It's starting to flesh out more in Batman Eternal itself. There's an extended family of characters that are now getting a spotlight. Some of them are very new. Some of them are classic. That's a sign of just great creative teams, too, that are making these characters matter to us. It's a really good time to be a Batman fan.
Oh, God, yeah. And, you talk about Eternal, Bluebird.
Yeah.
Come on, right there. Again, as we talk about Robin candidates, right there's a Robin candidate.
Sure.
But I think it was the Batman panel. They talked about her. They said returning, bigger, definitely 100% returning bigger and, bigger than a one-shot or a limited and/or mini-series. So this is a new character that's going to be around for a while.
But also, now that ups her to either being spotlighted more as Bluebird, or is that a Robin candidate?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And I love that. I was like, oh, okay, And again, with her, part of me likes the fact that she became Bluebird and not Robin. Mm-hmm. Kept her own style. But the story could be told very easily of her shifting into the Robin. They had that teaser image of Stephanie Brown being back. Once again, she's a Robin candidate. I always thought about Tim Drake dropping the red and becoming a Robin. where they do that whole story where he's no longer Red Robin, he becomes Robin because he did the whole thing where he wasn't going to become Robin because Jason Todd was dead. Well,
Right.
maybe now this could be a chance for him to come back as Robin and actually be Robin instead of Red Robin. There's a lot of different stuff that run through my head when I heard a return of a Robin. I think that is something that the Bat family and Bat universe has done really well, where they're doing this for us.
I don't want it to be Tim Drake. It's funny when you were saying that, and this isn't saying you're wrong for feeling that way. You aren't. I love Tim Drake, so this isn't me. I've technically been reading Tim longer than you, but I think the character has developed his own identity as Red Robin. What I'd really like, I'd love a Red Robin series. I would love. I'm glad that Teen Titans is coming back, and I want to see him have that spotlight role in Teen Titans that he had in the beginning, because I thought that was really cool, the way that they used him there. Tim is a character that I don't think needs to. It would be like Dick Grayson stepping back into the shoes of Robin at this point. I think Tim is his own entity. I don't think he needs it, I guess, is kind of the key for me. I don't know. I'm not saying that I would be like kicking and screaming if they made him Robin again. No, not necessarily. I think it'd be great. But I don't know. I'm more intrigued. Like, it's funny. I say that I want Damian back, who had such a great character arc and a closure story to him. Yet I think there's so much more potential there for the son of Batman that hasn't been tapped. That's why I lean so much more towards him or towards one of the newer candidates to take over that role.
And let me clarify something. I'm not saying I want Tim to be it. Mm-hmm. I agree with you. I like him as Red Robin. I like him as his own entity, his own life force. But that's just always when I start thinking of candidates, he does pop in my head as a candidate.
Sure.
Now, me personally, I agree with you completely. Keep him Red Robin, or do whatever you're going to do, but keep him as his own self. Would love a Red Robin series just because Teen Titans was cool, but the solo series does let you spotlight more with him, get more into who he is and why he ticks. You could pull some more of his personal and his family stuff into this, and especially because in the current DC universe, his family's not dead; they're still out there in witness protection. So there'd be some cool moments of him interacting with his family, and him having just those moments that were nice Tim moments as opposed to Robin moments. So I keep saying I don't want Damian back, but I do. I so want him back, and I gotta just admit and just drop the I don't know. I want Damian back as Robin, because I want to see the son of Batman interacting with Bruce. I want to see those moments again. I always throw out Damian's first date. Tell me that would not be the funniest moment in comic books, just because him dealing with it. And I think back to that great Robin episode, that Robin issue where he was going on his first date, and right in the middle of it, Bruce kind of comes swinging into it, and he's in civilian clothes, and he helps out Batman by throwing one of the platter dishes into the bad guy, and there was just that whole moment, the interaction between the two of them saying, "Hey, dude, what are you doing interrupting my date here?" I think Damian would handle that much differently, and it would have been a lot funnier. And I think those kind of moments, those out of the costume moments with Damian and Bruce, would make for some really cool, just really cool moments. So I want Damian back, but as I say that, I trust the creative team to give me something awesome.
Right, I agree. What do you think about the weekly series being back? Like, I'm looking at the right now the DC Entertainment All Access panel news, and they were talking about the first 35 issues of Batman Eternal have been written. That's a weekly book. It gives me a lot of comfort to know that, wow, this is a big epic story. They said it was going to be over a year long. So, we're getting like 60-something issues. I forget, we talked about it on the show. But knowing that the first 35 were already written says a lot to me about the serious nature of making sure these weekly books are delivered on time, which is important to me with a weekly. I have a lot more elasticity as a fan, and not everybody does, and it's okay. There's not a right or wrong here. But it's funny, a weekly series, I have a lot of issues with the book not coming out on time, because that's the whole point. That's the delivery. But yet I'll give a lot more latitude for a monthly book, just being like, okay, I want it done, and I want it done right and all that. And for some reason, I'm just okay with that on a bigger level. Not saying that I prefer that. I want all books on time. But a weekly, it's like, if you're doing that, that's the whole concept of it. Like, I want that story delivered in their serialized weekly parts. It's like missing a TV show. You know, like when a TV show has a rerun in the midst of it run. I hate that. Yes. Especially when it's a TV show that I love. It's like, let's keep going with it. Air this weekly. I want to keep following the story. Like Arrow does it every so often, and it's intentional. There are certain weeks where there aren't new episodes of Arrow. It's a testament to how much I love the show that I'm like, no, I don't want any breaks. I want my Arrow. So a weekly comic series kind of fits that for me. It feels more television to me. And I just like the experiment of, I don't want all my books weekly. But when you've got something special like Eternal coming out, that's why, okay, I'm buying 4 issues a month as opposed to 1 issue. But that's because it's a different sort of storytelling experience that I'm going to get through the monthly book. I don't want 4 Batman weeklies going, budget-wise. I don't want that. But to have 1, and it being for a storytelling purpose, and it's finite. This isn't going to be, Eternal's not going to be an ongoing forever. It's telling a specific story, and out of it we're going to get probably new series, new events, new stories that are spinning out into the Batman universe from it. There's going to change the mythos of Batman. I'm into that. So Eternal is something that I'm really excited for. How do you like having the weekly back, though? I don't know if you feel the same way I do.
Oh, I dig it. Yeah, I'm with you about I want it on time. Normally, I am very even keel and very understanding for delays, and there have been times when people have been complaining about a series being delayed. I'm like, has it? Oh, okay. I don't notice because we get so many titles that I'm always reading something. Mm-hmm. There's never on my desk where I'm sitting there going, okay, I don't have anything to read this week. I always have stuff to read because I get so much and I get behind sometimes. So normal monthly delays, I'm okay with. A weekly series, if you advertise it as a weekly series, it better be weekly. So just hear them talk about the planning. Again, I agree with you. I like that, and it's so far a really cool series. I'm really enjoying it. Again, it's delving a lot into Gotham City. It's not just a Batman story. It's Batman. It's Gordon. It's Barbara's going to be coming into the mix. It's it's all of this Bat universe. It's the Bat family, the stuff that makes Gotham City such a cool city to write about. All this is coming into play, and I think that's how you have to handle a series like this, and why you need 60 issues told within a little bit over a year's time, as opposed to 60 issues total over 5 years.
They had me at Blackfire. They did. One of my favorite Batman villains. They had me at that. I mean, I'm just really excited to see what they do with him in the New 52. Scott Snyder just finished writing the last part of Zero Year. I'm excited for that. Superman Unchained, 5 pages left to be finished. Now, there's a book I'd like to talk about real quick, because that's one that I want to go back and read, like, after it's done.
Yes.
Because I feel like I've really enjoyed every issue of it, but I'm disconnected from the story because of the space between the releases. And I don't mean that like I don't like it. I'm very glad that I've picked it up. I just feel like it's one of those that I think to fully appreciate it, I'm going to need to reread. The artwork's always been stunning. The story's always been spectacular. I really like what they've been doing with the characters, especially I love Lois in it. I think that they're just doing a great job. It's a gorgeous looking series. But I feel like I'm not as connected to that as I am the other Superman books because of the delay. I just want to read it when it's done. I just feel it's going to read like a great miniseries. That's where I'm kind of at with that. I don't know if you feel the same way though. Are you?
I'm nodding my head as you're talking. I'm very disconnected from it, and I'm trying to remember what the different storylines with it are. So I'm with you. I've just taken all of my, Superman Unchained, and they're just sitting, off to the side. I'm just going to wait till everything is said and done, and I'm just going to sit down one through the end and just read them as a block. And every time I read the issues, I remember going, oh, this is awesome, this is cool, oh, this looks nice, and I remember enjoying it. But it's, again, because of the distance and because of the length of time between issues, I don't have any like passion and or fire for it. So I do want a nice contained story and see where it goes.
I like the idea of the government-controlled Superman, though. Like, that concept that they have going in there, just how we really don't want that, but how easy that would be for that to happen is something that really kind of stands out for me, especially between, who in the government's controlling them and how, when you do something as covert as that, You can understand the reasonings why, but also how that can lead to a certain level of perhaps corruption, how it's used. It's exploring very interesting concepts. It's a series, though, that I feel like I haven't fully appreciated yet, and it's one of those where I'm stockpiling it as I read it, knowing I'm going to have to go back to it, because I read every issue as it comes out, so I am reading it that way. I just feel like I'm not remembering everything that I read before, so it's my faith in the creative teams, the creative team that's on it. Scott Snyder writing it, I mean, yeah. Jim Lee art, it looks beautiful. It's everything that I want. I just need, some time with it more connected. I want to read it as a mini. So there will be several dozen Wonder Woman. There are several dozen Wonder Woman, and I'm loving every minute of that.
That's a title you have to have a body count. Let's be, you're dealing with Wonder Woman. You're dealing with the goddess of war. You gotta have death involved with it, and you gotta have carnage. She's an Amazon. There's going to be a high body count, and it's something that. Not only do I accept, I enjoy with the series. I'm curious to see where it goes after this, because this is one of those where they're setting up to a point where do you go from here? What's going to be next? Are we going to, start seeing a shift in the Wonder Woman title? Are we going to start seeing a shift in who she is? Because you look at just the legacy of Wonder Woman. We have this Amazon warrior, we have a diplomat, we have a queen, we have a princess, we have all these personas that Wonder Woman has adopted over time, and that's where I'm wondering where this is going to go. Where this is going to lead us to, and. So I'm definitely looking for. I'm looking forward to the end, but I'm not, because I've enjoyed this creative team. But you know what? I know they're building to something cool.
Where does your concept of the Amazons come from? Like when you think of the Amazons as a race, and I've got a reason for asking this question. I'll tell you why afterwards. But when you think of Amazons, Wonder Woman and the Amazons, but let's separate Diana from it. This is the Amazons as people. Where do you get your background from the Amazons from?
Well. My locked in, what I always think of now with the Amazons is, of course, Gail Simone's run.
Okay.
That concept she really instilled and she kind of created. For me, that was really the knowledge of the Amazons. Now, before that, I always thought of the Amazons and just the classic Greek, mythology with, the warrior women, just the code of honor and that kind of fire and just that hardcore, we're going to kill you now. We're going to take you. This is the way it is. Deal with it. And I had that kind of locked. But then, as started reading more and started getting more, and you started seeing just the society aspect to it. So it's, I have a traditional base hardcore warrior, base on it. But then I got to see a code of honor. I got to see just the true nature of the Amazons and the sisterhood and just everything that the society, had. I was like, okay, now this is an Amazons I really like. This is the kind of way I like them to be. They can throw down at any time, and will do some serious damage to you, or they can be, but to themselves they are this true great society within themselves.
It's the reason why I was mentioning it. Martin Gray posted on Google Plus, I believe. It's one of those where I get the comment in my email, and I responded through my email, and I always enjoy talking to him because he has a long, rich comic history. The Amazons in Wonder Woman have had a unique roller coaster. There was a time when it was a peace-loving island. They distanced themselves from the world because they didn't want to get involved in the violence of the world, and Diana was really sent as an ambassador of peace. Over time, that's changed, and I would really say that a lot of that started to shift after Crisis, when George Perez took over, really relaunched it, and the idea of what happened to the Amazons from the male crowd, and how it led to the warrior race and some of their code. But then it shifted again in the New 52. We've got a different sort of Amazon race now that has been through different things because of the events of the New 52. So he was talking about how he preferred the peace-loving Amazons, and obviously he has a rich history with that and reading it. I do think that's one of the interesting things with comics. We all have our different jump-on point with characters and concepts. We have ones that were our favorites that we tend to latch onto and hold on to. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the Amazons and with Wonder Woman in general after Azzarello's run's done. What are they going to do with them? Because it's going to be a hard run to follow. Whether it's been your cup of tea or not, it's definitely been a definitive run. He has defined a lot of characters and concepts beyond just the Amazons, the gods, and the new gods. He opened up the new gods again. Yeah. Totally, that was a surprise for me. And I really liked what he did with the new gods in particular. Like, his Orion was fantastic. I also want to comment as far as the art decisions for the new gods. I really liked that Orion looked like the classic Orion, but yet they made him more today in a way. I think his suit is super cool because it has the right mix of classic and the way that his bike works and everything. It's everything I liked about Orion, but yet it doesn't feel like out of date. I think, when it's a Kirby concept like that, to see that brought to today while capturing so much of what it made it work for Kirby, I think has really worked in this run. So those are characters that I want to see more of, and I'm hoping, if it's not in Wonder Woman, that characters like Orion appear elsewhere, because I really love the look and style and the way the character carries himself. He's been a great addition to this book as a supporting cast member that I think I want to see more of.
Agree completely with Ann on that one. As you're going, I'm just nodding my head saying, yes, this has been, again, with the new gods and with the old gods as well. When they first started, just the imagery of them, the last time we talked about Wonder Woman, I said, you know what? I like the look of these guys now. Before I was like, I don't know. Now I'm like, this is cool. This is neat. And I know with the next creative team, they can change them around again.
Yeah.
Because they are gods. They can change themselves. They can change their imagery around. How they appear to everybody else and to themselves is going to be based on their whims, based on what's going on in the world, what's based on everything that's happening around them. So there's definitely going to be some changes happening, and we may get a whole new set of new gods of Olympus, and or we may lose Olympus completely. I don't know. That's I think the neat thing, the neat and exciting part about what's happening here. We don't know exactly where this is going to go. What's going to happen to Diana and to everybody around her.
Swamp Thing number 32 is going to have Aquaman, an underwater adventure with Aquaman. Yeah. I cannot wait for that. I'm loving the use of Swamp Thing, both in Justice League Dark, but in his own book with Charles Soule writing it. I think that writer just is nailing everything that he's doing. So the idea of having him have a chance to play around with Aquaman a little bit, just in his interactions with Swamp Thing, it just has me really, really excited.
Amen.
The Guy Gardner confrontation with Atrocitus. One of my favorite books right now has become Red Lantern. It's one of those sleeper hits for me. Like, if you were to ask me to start going off my top 10 list, I'd leave it off of it. And I don't mean that as an insult, but what I'm saying is then when I read it, if you were to ask me afterwards, I would make sure to somehow throw it in there because it's a great book. And the characters matter to me. It's really an example of how a new creative direction for a book can now take it, a book that I was already enjoying, but put it in a different place on my stack. It really is one that if you ever tried Red Lanterns, you should really, and you dropped off it, you should really be revisiting it now because it's a book that really is taking the concept in a very different direction while not throwing what went before out the window. But at the same time, if you've never touched Red Lanterns, this is a great time to jump on board. The stuff they're doing with Guy Gardner, with Supergirl, but with the whole Red Lantern family, and then Atrocitus, and this idea that, there's two different Red Lantern factions now vying for control. And what is that going to look like in the end of the whole thing? Is there going to be a peace between the Red Lanterns, or is it just going to always be this walking set of combustibles? I really love that I care about the whole Red Lanterns team, and I feel like I'm getting to know them, including the beach ball.
Yes. Oh my God. Let's get ready to rumble, dude. Let's get ready. I'm very excited for that. I'm looking forward to the fight and the battle, and just it's Red Lanterns, as I said them multiple times. This is a title that's really kicking it up for me, and I read that. I was like, oh, cool. I want to see this.
It's a book I used to stockpile, and no, not anymore.
Not anymore. Can't. Yeah. I'm on the same page with you. I used to stockpile it and used to get back to it. once they really, really kicked it into groove, I was like, okay, this is now, when it comes out, I put it aside. I open up my box, I put it aside, I read it right then and there. I jump on that thing.
And let me clarify what I mean by stockpiling. And Jim, if you have any addendums on what it looks like for you, please fill it in. When I say stockpiling on the show, those are titles that, like, we're all busy. We all have lives, we have jobs, we have things that are going on, and I read a lot of titles. So a stockpiled book is one that I'm enjoying. I'm glad I'm picking up, but there's certain books when I pick up my box and I start reading, I read my favorites first because those are the ones that I can't wait to read. There's things that are going on in them. I jump to them right away. I have another set of books that I'm glad I'm picking up, but like if I don't get to them in that week, it's not the end of the world for me. I want to read them. I'm glad I'm picking them up, but there's just not those events that are going on that make me go, I've got to get to this now. So a book gets stockpiled then. And then when I read it, I usually read 3 or 4 issues in a row because life just doesn't let me stay as caught up as I'd like. Or you and I were going to do it for the show. We're like, hey, we haven't talked about that in a book in a while. Let's do that. So then I end up reading those issues to get caught up so we're ready for the podcast. And I genuinely enjoy the experience. Now, when I reread those books for the purpose of our podcast, when I read them to get up there, it has one or two things. Either I keep stockpiling it because, it's still a good book, but I'm just not quite there. Or the events in there have paid off in a certain way that it's gotten me reinvigorated for the title. It now jumps into that different, I've got to read it, must-read category again. Red Lanterns is one of those books that since the creative change and since the direction change of it, Guy Gardner having a more active role in it, it's not just Guy, though, has really taken that whole book and just made it a must-read for me. I do not stockpile that book at all. And it actually has had a dramatic effect, it and Supergirl, with the change in direction for both of those titles. There's kind of a marriage there. Supergirl I was always enjoying and reading every month. Right. But I think the interconnectivity between the two right now has really just kicked both titles up to a different level.
And I'm going to use cosign on what you're saying there. And especially I'm glad you mentioned Supergirl because she was a title that I was stockpiling. Now, I enjoyed it. I loved, it was a great story. But when the whole Kal-El and the Hel-El storyline ended, I was pulled in other ways. So I was like, okay, I got this story, I got this going on, So she was getting stockpiled. Then when the whole Red happened, I'm like, wait a minute, I got caught up and I'm running through straight on her as well. There's no more stockpiling on her just because, again, it was that reinvigoration, that refiring. I'm like, oh, I got to keep reading this now. So it's, and she's a title that I've always enjoyed, but it would stockpile a couple issues, or if we're going to talk about it on the show or something like that, and it just happened that because of, time's limited and we got to pick this and we're talking about this on the show. So I got to make sure I read these and I got to reread these. So stuff gets put aside sometimes and I'll eventually get back to it. I know. But she was she's another one for me that just because of this really neat, story being told with her, I was like, okay, I got to keep up on all of this now.
Yeah, I give creators credit for recognizing, hey, I need to do something with the book. I need to, we need to shake it up a little bit, get some notice, get people interested. And I think that's an important role you have. And it's how to be judicious with that so you keep your ongoing storyline with the character going. And, for Supergirl, it's more of this sense of, she really is an alien in our world. And that's something that I've really enjoyed about her in the New 52. She is a tried and true Kryptonian coming to Earth. She grew up on Krypton. She has that life history. So she's a fish out of water here, whereas Kal-El is not. Kal-El came here as a baby. He was adopted as a baby. I relate to that because I was adopted as a baby. So, I get the idea that, I don't have this sense of family before my family. My family is the parents that adopted me. I don't have any other connections. But in Supergirl's case, it's the opposite. This is her adopted world, but she's the kid that grew up her whole life on Krypton, had her parents, has rich, vivid memories. Her love, her connection, her foundations came from them. So this is a very different world for her. I love that. I like that change for her. And it made that book that much more interesting for me. So Supergirl's been one of those. It's funny, there was times, I'll admit, Supergirl was my favorite Superman title in what it was doing.
Yeah.
And I think that Supergirl has, again, come back into that that stretch of being just a really interesting. Red Lantern Supergirl is just cool. I think it's just a really cool because it makes sense. It's not just done as a gimmick.
Yes.
There's a storytelling reason for her to be in the place that she's in right now, and I'm very anxious to see where it goes. Batman Superman number 10, written by Jeff Lemire. It's funny how I like fill-in issues, and I don't know if that's like a weird bad thing to say or something like that. I like that over having a title slip, deadlines. So when you hear, and then especially when you hear like, wow, Jeff Lemire, yeah, sign me up. So, that kind of stuff is cool. I'm glad they're announcing it. And I don't know the reasoning behind it. I don't know if they need, for Batman Superman number 11, they just need, more time for the art and creative team. Cool, because I'm loving the Batman Superman book in general anyway. Not Charles Soule. Greg Pak is doing the writing on that one, and I'm really digging the book in general. And the artwork from Jay Lee, which I've mentioned on there. So the book needs a little bit more time. Cool. We're going to get a great story from Jeff Lemire. I can't wait to see what it is. So, that kind of stuff gets me excited. So I'm glad that they're doing that because I want more of the... And, he's talking about... Greg Pak was talking about we're going to see Steel. We're going to see Crypto. There's a big action scene coming up for Crypto. Lois Lane's going to be in the book. So, I don't know. I think that... I'm excited for the new things that are coming from that title. Let's see. They did on the panel, and I wish they'd do this more. They asked the creators what their favorite current comic is, and Charles Soule said it was The Wake. Have you read that from Scott Snyder, the Vertigo miniseries?
No, I didn't.
I recommend it. It's really, really good. Over the summer, let's do a Vertigo episode. Where we pick, it doesn't matter if you've been reading the titles or not. It'd be fun, I think, to pick some random books that maybe you haven't been reading, and just kind of maybe hit the current issue where it makes sense. If there's a new arc starting or something like that, and just pick a few Vertigo titles that and do a Vertigo episode. I know I read more Vertigo than you do. I would love your perspective as maybe I don't know if it's fair to call you a non-Vertigo reader, but you're definitely not the Vertigo reader that I am. Let's pick a few things and just talk about them. And do a Vertigo episode. And The Wake is one of them we should do.
And you can actually call me a non-Vertigo reader.
Okay.
And it's not not a knock on Vertigo. It's a financial reason.
Sure.
I've dropped all the Vertigo titles. And, I think sometimes when they announce a new series coming out, I'll pick up one, or if they do those, because sometimes DCBS will do those packets where they'll do all these things together. I'll get like that packet. And I get it just partially because I figured, okay, maybe we're going to talk about it for the show, but I also order just, okay, let's see where this goes and see what happens. But as a general rule, I'm not reading Vertigo just because, I had to make the choice on finances, and that was a way for me to save a lot of money where I'm just not picking up that line. So it's... and
let's do it from the perspective like when we originally started the show, though. I think you fit in that role because you were the non-DC reader when we started the show. So it'd be kind of a fun little journey back to kind of how we started because I am reading Vertigo. So I'll pick 4 or 5 different titles. We'll talk about it beforehand. And we'll just do an episode talking about them from the perspective of you're not reading them. I am. Are there any of them that you would consider picking up regularly based on the reading experience we have? I think that would be kind of fun to see because they're all books that I'm picking up and enjoying, but I'd enjoy hearing your perspective not reading them.
You do realize that if we end up with Jim having to add more titles to his pull list, I am going to hurt you. Just so we're clear on that matter. If you do that to me again, I'm going to hurt you.
Well, this is the start of the podcast, isn't it? 8 years later, adding more titles to my pull list. Remember, you didn't have a pull list when you started all this.
I started off with a $20 a month budget.
No, you started off with nothing.
Yeah, I started off borrowing from you. And then I'm like, I'm just going to spend $20 a month. And that was all I was spending. And then it turned into $20 a week. And then it turned into the monstrosity that it is today. And I'm like, what am I doing?
How many people are nodding with you right now? I'm nodding with you right now. We talk about stockpiling books because of the fact that, time
is something to read.
No, honestly, that's one of the things. We talk about financials being the enemy. But time is also an enemy. There's so much that I want to read. Like, we do a DC Comics podcast, but I read Marvel books. I read Valiant. I'm reading the whole line. I love Valiant. I'm reading books from Image. I read indies that are out there. I don't read everything that I want to, though. And a lot of times my decisions are made from the fact that I can't stockpile anymore. It's just not realistic. I'm never going to get to some of these books. So I have to be judicious on that end. Obviously, things that we're getting for the show, because I want to eventually be able to keep up on, I like to keep up on everything going on at DC because there's interesting things for us to discuss on this podcast. And I'm enjoying reading them. But wow, that is one of the big things that we don't talk about so much as fans, besides the financials. There is a time issue. And for some people, if you're working a couple of jobs, trying to fit in comics into your life becomes that much harder. So that is one of the things we don't really discuss. Greg Pak was talking about, and Scott Snyder, they both said their favorite current comic is Wonder Woman. And Dan Jurgens admitted that his favorite current comic is Batman Beyond, which is, that's a really cool book, too. I just get into when creators kind of mention titles that they're reading. It's nice to know that some of them are able... I can imagine as a writer or an artist with their packed schedule, it's very hard to keep up with comics because, they're constantly creating. They're trying to get in 30 days. These books that they're releasing, they're on scheduled deadlines and going to conventions and, communicating with fans over the internet and through social media and doing interviews and things. To try and find the time for them to read and get caught up with what's going on is probably got to be very difficult. So I get into it when I see that they take the time to read certain books and enjoy them. One of the more controversial topics that's been coming out this week has been Comixology being bought by Amazon. And what it has changed is, in the app, you can no longer do, like, Apple or Google purchases from those devices in the new Comixology app. It hasn't affected yet the DC Comics app directly, but it affects the regular full-blown Comixology app. Now, here's where there's a difference on this one. And comic creators actually were quick to speak up in defense of it, because a lot of people were saying, but I like the convenience of being able to instantly purchase on the device, and this has taken that out of it. But what ends up happening is 30% of the profits goes to Apple and Google when you purchase that way. But if you go to Comixology's website, it doesn't do that. So when they've taken that out, what ends up happening is more money goes to the creators because of the fact that now that 30% that was previously going to Apple and Google is now split out to the creators. Comixology, it looks like, takes a 35% cut.
Yeah.
The creative team takes a 17.5 to 23% cut. And then there's variable between publishers and creative. There's this little pocket window. But the publisher gets 12 to 17%. And like I said, there's that little pocket window in there where that could be a little bit more, a little bit less, depending on the relationship between the publisher and the creators and how they handle that. But when you put that Apple and Google taking 30% of the piece along with Comixology, 65% of it is going to those companies instead of going back to the creators and publishers. So now with Apple and Google being eliminated on that app, that 30% now is split back between all those other parties, including Comixology. So it means a greater piece of the pie to creators, and you know what? And I'm going to say this too, and this might be dirty to say, also back to the publishers. And I think there's an importance to that. And let me explain the importance to that. From a business standpoint, when you want titles to survive, the more money a publisher is making on those titles, the greater chance of that title remaining in existence, which is good for us as the reader. It's good for the creators. So I like seeing a mixture of half and half. Publishers are getting more now. Creators are getting more now. It's a win-win if those titles can get out and get more viral. Here's the big issue, though. You can't publish directly from the app. You have to go to the website in order to do that. Does that bother you when you have to do that extra step?
Well,
you don't buy that way, but go ahead.
Yeah, I don't buy mine that way. Through my computer, through my desktop, I go to DCBS and I use their link into it to buy them. So I don't think I'm going to even be affected that way.
You aren't. It's going to be the same for you.
So it doesn't affect me. I don't care. No.
Where it does is, though, the people that have, like, if you've done a gift card for the Apple Store, if you've done a gift card for the Google Play Store, that affects you. And I can understand that side of it. It'll be curious to see what happens, because now that they've been bought by Amazon, is there an option for us to add credit onto our Amazon accounts, through Amazon gift cards to do something similar for people who like it that way? I don't know. I'm going to be curious to see how this grows. I'm a fan of, though, when you see creators popping up and going, look, understand this move. And Nick Spencer was one of, who I love, was one of those that jumped up right away and started saying, hey, this means more money going to the creators of the actual books, which is a good thing. I've personally, for myself, even though I read it on my iPad, that's my preferred method of reading the digital comics. I always going to dcbservice.com and clicking on their link and giving them a piece of the pie. It gives me that 5% back, which is a few bucks. I like that. But in all honesty, the main reason why I do it is I know that means DCBS gets a little bit of the pie too when we do it that way.
Yes.
And I feel like I'm supporting, DCBS I consider as my local. But you can do that for a lot of your local comic shops as well. So if you don't purchase from DCBS and you purchase from a local comic shop and they have a portal, I'm a fan of doing it that way. So you can still do that with this. And occasionally I'll buy an issue direct from the app. I did that today with the Flash, with the Flash annual. Yeah. But it's not to me, okay, so I got to go on my computer and buy it instead. Okay. It doesn't, I'm going to go and do that. I get the people that are frustrated and I understand why. I always lean towards I would rather do it through my computer and be a little inconvenienced from now on, knowing that the creators are going to get it. And it was actually this morning I started reading this article, and it really has just changed my whole thinking. It's going to influence when the click that I did this morning. If I had read this article before I purchased the Flash annual, I would have gone to my computer and purchased the annual from there, knowing that creators get a bigger piece of the pie if you purchase it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, and as a joking around before about not caring. But
I know, yeah.
Yeah. Again, with what you're saying, from a business side of it, this is going to be, this is a good deal. So, I didn't know anything about this until we first started talking about it. But, it's the dirty word sometimes when people are talking comics is it's a business. But it is. And if the publishers aren't making enough money, guess what? They're going to drop a title. And, if it's going to help get them a little bit more money, if it's going to help giving the creators a little bit more money, I'm all for it.
Well, they said it equals for digital-only titles like Little Gotham and Adventures of Superman, it equates to about a 42% increase in pay for the creators.
See, that's awesome. Hearing that's kind of cool. So.
Yeah. So, to me, that's a no-brainer. If that's legit what they're getting from that, annoying. I get that. Because this morning, to be honest, I woke up this morning and I'm like, the Flash Annual came out this week. I hadn't had a chance to pull out the paper copy. And, you and I both talked about on the show how when we are doing the podcast, it's nice to have the digital version in front of us. It's a little larger. It gives us an opportunity to kind of have it in front of our computers, and our screens. We both like doing that, which is why I like having it on my iPad. It's just there's something about being able to shift from book to book so simplistically that way. So I went to purchase it that way. I really do. This is one of those things where I'm like, I'd rather just go to my computer and make sure 42% of it goes to the creators.
Yeah.
And the company. I know that's always for some reason, we feel that's evil to say that you want to support the comic company. We want the comic company to be making money off of these books because we want the books to exist, which is ultimately good for us and it's good for the creators. So I like a balance of, yes, the creators are getting more money, which I want 100%. First order of business. I'm a big fan of that. Second order of business is you want the company making profits on that book if you like the book, because that means it's a win-win for the creators because their book will continue, which is profit in their pocket. The company will keep the book continuing because it's profit in their pocket. So I just hope that it continues being that way. And in the end, Amazon comes up with some unique ways to make it easier for fans to make purchases. That it's a new transition. It's a new process. And we as fans, if you like digital, we should try to find ways to support that and to support, complain to Amazon if you're having issues with things like that. And ask them to come up with some unique solutions to make it easier to make purchases. Because if they can do that and, make it, they're with the limitations of Google and Apple want you to do in-app purchases through their stores. I understand that. But if they're taking a 30% cut and it's impacting the, creators and the publishers ultimately of the cut, I don't want that. No. I just don't. I'm glad that they have a workaround so it gets money back where it belongs. So I hope it's a good thing and I hope it remains that way. I really do. So we'll see what happens. And I know people probably got different thoughts. Actually, anybody who, if you got a different thought on this, please feel free to call in. It's an interesting topic, and I would love a variety of perspectives, so feel free to share yours. It's not, none of these comments are meant to be a slap to the face of those of you that are frustrated from this. I can understand that, and it probably, in different situations, there's very different reasons why this might be a problem for you. So I'd love to hear those voices as well, because I don't think there's a right or wrong here. I just, Jim and I are just sharing our perspective on how it works for us. There's a whole bunch of news coming out of the New 52 panel as well, and we're not going to, redo all of them, but you were just actually going to say something about Batgirl number 32 was talked about there from Gail Simone, which we both have reasons to be excited.
Yeah. I cheered. I cheered out loud when I read it. I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. Ragdoll was one of my characters in Secret Six that was like just a favorite, and I know yours as well, and we love talking about that. So for us, it's going to be just a revisiting an old friend, and I can't wait to see what it looks like in the New 52 for that character, because she'll hit him right to the core, of who that character is, and that character belongs in the New 52. Yes. So I'm just so excited for that issue. That one, I'll say it right now. We are doing that issue on the show.
Yes, that's a must. That's definitely going to be a must topic, and want to see because there's going to be changes to him. There'll be a little bit, but even she said she's going to be a little bit creepier, which is hard to do for him from the past. He was awesome before, so I want to see where he goes now.
Now, what do you think about Star Spangled War Stories featuring G.I. Zombie? It's Palmiotti and Gray. The idea behind this is it's a zombie that has fought in all of the American wars and is now working with a current soldier to infiltrate a crime organization. This was one that comes out in July. So what do you think about that?
Again, the names Palmiotti and Gray are attached to it. Uh-huh. Soldier, I'm okay. If anybody else was writing this, I'd be like, I don't know, a zombie soldier. Why can't we just have a regular military story? Why can't we just have an actual story about real soldiers? We don't need to have the zombie twist to it. But because it's Gray and Palmiotti, I'm like, okay, let's see where this goes. It's going to be a neat story because they're talented writers. And especially when you put them in war stories, when you're dealing with soldiers. There are people who don't really write the soldier and the mindset of the soldier well. So I'm looking forward. I'm curious to see where it goes because I am a zombie fan. So let's see how much of is it going to be brain-eating zombie? Is it just going to be a person who can't die or a person who died and was reanimated? I'll kind of like a Frankenstein thing. So I want to see where this goes, what they're going to do with it, and definitely going to pick it up and read it and see what happens with it.
Well, G.I. Zombie wasn't G.I. Zombie part of those weird freaky group that we've seen previously, but now this is a character that's spinning off. Am I right on that? Haven't we seen G.I. Zombie before?
I don't recall seeing G.I. Zombie.
Okay, those
yeah,
you know what I'm talking about. I'm so drawing a blank on them right now. They travel with with Frankenstein.
Yeah,
wasn't G.I. Zombie one of them, or am I totally off base?
I don't remember seeing with Frankenstein.
Okay, which I
could be wrong. I'll be honest. I could very easily be wrong, but I don't remember seeing G.I. Zombie.
Yeah, whether he was or not is irrelevant to me. It's Palmiotti and Gray, like you said. I don't know. It seems like a freaky, strange character to be put in, and with what they've been doing with All Star Western, I am so excited to see what they're going to do with this book. More Palmiotti and Gray is always a good thing for me. So I'm excited for that. You know what we're going to do next episode? This was also talked about at the panel, Future's End number 0.
Yeah.
We'll make it a point to put that on next episode because we're going to have content that we announced for this episode because we weren't originally planning to do a C2E2 kind of news wrap-up. We will be bumping to the next episode. So this is actually kind of technically a quote-unquote two-parter where we will get certain content in on this show and continue it on to our next episode. But we will add on to next episode because of that, Future's End number 0, because I want to talk about that. I'm excited. Yeah. So that'll be a part of the next one. The Doom storyline is coming from the Superman books, and I'm excited to see a Doomsday crossover, something big with the character, to really have that done. But also the fact that we've got Superboy, and there was a panel of multiple Superboys being shown. Does that mean we're getting back the good Superboy?
I think so. I think we're going to see the end of John Lane Kent. But again, it's even if he's evil, even if he's a bad guy, he's facing death, and that's going to change somebody. They're going to want to live. So, are we going to get one of those crossover type of where it's the body of our Superboy, the spirit of that one, or is there going to be something with that? There's going to be a lot of different ways they can go with this, especially because you're dealing with clone bodies and, you know, non-clones and whatnot, and who's what, who is who with various time dimensionals. So he's a character that they can mess around with, have some fun with, and, you know, in the end, we're going to have somebody. And it's the journey, what's going to happen, who it's going to be.
There was a talk at the panel about, certain comics that don't make it, that they're more of the out-of-the-box ideas, the newer things. Like the G.I. Zombie, the Star-Spangled War stories with G.I. Zombie. How do we make those titles stick? And Paul Miotti spoke up and said that we need to sell more of them. We're a sales-driven industry. But the great thing about comics is that even when concepts die, they eventually come back. But Cunningham made a mention of, fans need to tell about the books that they love. And I would encourage anyone listening to this to do that. More important than, like, ranting and raving about things you don't like, be an advocate for the books that you're really enjoying. And whether it's the biggest selling title or the lowest selling title that's currently going on from any comic company. Let's take DC out of it. Any comic company that you're reading right now. Shout it out. Let people know why they should be reading it. Get specific. Talk about cool events. Give people a jump-on point to that book because that's the best way to increase sales. And don't think because a book features a character that, is one of the big characters that you can't shout that out as well. Like somehow we've got to, push the smaller ones. We got to push all of them. The reason why is, our sales for our top selling books are awful.
Yeah.
I think, compared to what these titles used to sell for. And I think we're doing comics a service anytime we get the word out about it. So you guys doing that, posting to a Twitter feed, posting to a website, you get one or two more people potentially trying a book. You've added to the mix. We have a chance to keep this a viral thing, and I encourage everyone listening to do that. When you get done with this podcast, shout out something you love. Whether it's the biggest selling book or not, and do what you can to try and get people to start reading. Give this book a shot, and be that advocate, because I think it's really, really important nowadays more than ever. I want this stuff around for years. And that series that may not be hitting where I want it to right now, I don't need to spend a whole lot of time on that. I want to be an advocate for the stuff that I'm really digging. I want more of that, And I think it's really important that we let people know that these things are great, that it's well worth the money that they're spending. Comics are expensive. I get it. But, getting somebody to become a casual fan, that's a very hard thing to do nowadays. The one or two comic casual fan. But we need those people too. We really do. That one person that might pick up only, they're a Western fan, they pick up All-Star Western. Great. That's more readers. Those are, advocates for saying, hey, dude, I'm reading comics. I read All-Star Western. I love it every month. It's the only book I read, but I dig it. And I think there's an audience to be built there that's a casual fan. And the jump-on point of comics is a lot cheaper when you're trying to get people on one or two of them. I think we are the ones, the diehards, that if we kind of take a step back a little bit and try to simplify things when we address people who aren't comic readers, and just kind of, instead of trying to get them to read like a pull list, get them to read one book, maybe two, I think we're an advocate for. And we a lot of times try to make it seem like you have to read 87 books to be a comic fan. You really don't. Right. There's a lot of books out there right now you can read one of. And yeah, they might cross over into other things, but the reality is if they cross over, you can read one title, and the comic creators, 90% of them right now are doing a really great job of giving you everything you need to know to keep reading that single book. We like to say they aren't, and that's just us getting, I think, crabby. And I'm just gonna say that. That's all it is. It's the truth of the matter is I think comic creators have gotten more and more savvy with that now than ever before. I think they're going. I think they're taking a step back to what worked in the past with that, in the sense that they give you the info you need to keep reading their title, and they should. And I think that balance is great. Sure, you get something more if you're reading all the books. Yeah. But that's like watching every television show that's out there. When you have a conversation around the water cooler, you're going to be a part of, if you're watching Mad Men but not Walking Dead, you're going to have to kind of back out when the Walking Dead discussion starts. But you're going to be heavily involved in the Mad Men discussion. It's the same thing with comics. And for us to try and act like it's anything differently, we're actually doing the medium a disservice. It's very easy to jump on this if we act as the advocates that let them know that it is. So it's kind of a rally cry for that, just because I thought it was cool the panel brought it up. They did talk about there's no plans for like a Poison Ivy, Static Shock, Ted Kord, Young Justice, or Donna Troy series in the near future. But
they're a little cheeky on Ted Kord.
Sure.
Yeah, and I like that when they do that kind of stuff. They're like, yeah, that's a really good question. And they dance around it, and they're like, oh, wow, next question. And they don't give you a definitive yes or no, or when they say no, but they're like, yeah, you never know. So that's part of the stuff I enjoy when you go to those panels. They get a little cheeky with you, and you're like, all right.
I would be excited for a Ted Kord return.
Yes, me too.
Or a Ted Kord starting or whatever, because Kord Industries has been so used in the comics. I would be excited for that. I really do. And I don't think you need to take one Blue Beetle away over the other in order to do that. So I would be really excited to see a Ted Kord series. Let's see. Vertigo. They did the Vertigo Defy panel. And Scott Snyder said that the end of American Vampire was actually part of the first pitch that he gave. So he's always had an ending of this whole thing in mind. And then Stephen King, we talked about this on the show. He co-wrote a blurb for American Vampire and liked it so much he asked to co-write. American Vampire has been a series I've really, really enjoyed all the way through. That's a great example of another Vertigo title that it's great because it's self-contained. You don't have to be reading a whole bunch of other books to get it. You probably stepped away from it, didn't you?
It killed me to do it. Mm-hmm. But when I made the Vertigo choice, I said, because at first I was going to
You're going to hate me.
What?
You're going to hate me because it's going to be one of the 5.
Okay, yeah. But when I made the choice, because I initially said I'm going to step away from everything but American Vampire.
Right.
And I was just going to keep American Vampire. And I was like, I think I had 1 month where I just kept American Vampire. I'm like, Jim, what are you doing? You know it. You're an addict. You're no way, if you don't cut completely out all of Vertigo, you're going to go back to it. You're going to slip. You're going to go back into it. So I made the tough call, and I stopped American Vampire, which was a series I absolutely loved. Mm-hmm. And it was, I was so excited because it was an ongoing vampire story, and it was an American version of the vampire. And it was just a little bit tweaks and changes. And I was just like, this is awesome. But I had to walk away. And so... yeah, so that's going to be the tough one. That's going to be the one that we go, hey, Jim, just a little taste. Just come on. Just read one issue of American Vampire. Do you
feel like with Vertigo that if you read one of them, you have to read all of them? Does that happen? I'm not saying there's a knock on you. I'm asking the question because you're bringing up an interesting point.
See, for a normal person, no. But for me, I throw out that I'm an addict, but it honestly is true with me with comic books. I do have a problem. And it goes right along the lines of person who's addicted to alcohol or to drugs, where you get that little taste of it, and you get that little thing going where you're like, well, one beer a night's fine, but hey, I can do 2 beers, I can do 3. Hey, you know what? I can do a shot and a beer every night, and I'll be fine. And it's that where it just naturally builds, and next thing you know, down the line, you're drinking a 12-pack every night, and you're not getting up for work, and there's every craziness, and that's how I look at a lot of times with comics, where I get that where I'm just going to read one issue. I'm just going to read one title. Well, next thing I know, I'm getting the full line, even though they're not connected, but I'm still doing that. And it's one of the reasons I avoid Marvel. Even though it's not a knock against Marvel, I know I can't just pick up the Wolverine series, or I can't just pick up an X book. I will get all of the X books. I'll get Cap. I'll get Avengers. I'll start pulling in everything. I know my personality. I know who I am and how I think, and it's the way my brain is wired. So it's a tough thing.
See, I've learned to be more judicious, and this isn't. It's I don't know, in some ways I think it's been therapeutic, and I think the podcast has had a major effect for me on that. When we started doing the podcast, I had to change the way I read in order to just focus on DC, because I was more of a varied reader, in the sense that comic books are really, forget Pokemon, gotta catch 'em all. Comic books are the got 'em, catch 'em all, hobby. Because you're right. Once you start reading, a line and you're into the line, you start going to yourself, but I want to get this one. I want to get that one. I'm doing it with Valiant right now. And honestly, I'm doing it with Valiant and loving every minute of it because I think their line's incredible. I think that they're just doing a tremendous job. But that means when I'm reading those, You talk about Marvel, who I love. I love Marvel comics. I'm reading the X books right now and really, really digging them. There's certain X titles that I jump to before others because I can't, time-wise, read everything I want to read. And they just launched a new Daredevil series, which I'm really digging. I've been following Spider-Man's events. But what ends up happening is, Marvel's one of those, because of the podcast that we do, I wind up stockpiling. So because of that, I start taking a look at the Marvel titles that I'm jumping to first and prioritizing those as purchases before I jump to ones that are not. Like, I was reading the Ultimate line. I had to step aside from that for now. Not because of quality, just because of time. There was no way I was getting to that with reading some of the current events. And I've gotten comfortable with the fact that, okay, I'll be reading the books that I'm reading right now for a few arcs, and then maybe I'll jump to the Ultimate books for a few arcs. I'm gonna let my interest kind of drive that with the things that I'm stockpiling, so that way I'm picking and choosing different titles and I can kind of keep involved with what's going on with those characters, even though I'm not reading everything. It's new for me because I'm not good at that. I want to read everything, but it's impossible. That's just the reality of my schedule. I can't do it. Vertigo's kind of the same way. There's a different kind of storytelling you get from Vertigo. Like, they're doing this CMYK anthology. It's going to be quarterly. So there's going to be a big quarterly book, and they're color-coded. So there's a Cheyenne book, and it's each letter stands for a different color, and that color will be the issue that's released on the quarterly scale. I don't know if it's a one-year-only thing or if it's multi-year, but I was excited to hear about an anthology. And if it's not out, the first issue, it is coming out. I haven't had a chance to check in my box. But you know me, I'm an anthology junkie. So they had me at that. And the idea of a Vertigo-driven anthology is really exciting for me. So that's the kind of stuff I tend to red flag. Lieber Mayo, which we know his artwork, so for so many great series. He's going to be doing The Suiciders. And it's Lieber Mayo. Like, how can I not read that? I mean,
I hate you right now, by the way.
It's going to be gorgeous. But it becomes this is stuff that I think when we get to our Vertigo episode, and even building to it, Jim, I think there's an importance in having a discussion of realizing what your reality is, finding the trade-offs as a comic fan. We can't buy everything. We want to. The importance is supporting the things that you can buy, getting used to what your budget is, both financial and time related, and finding a way to make that work so you're maximizing the time that you have, the budget that you have, so you've got a really great experience. I feel bad for the people that are comic fans that spend so much time on the internet trashing comics. They're really poor at picking a pull list. I mean, it's just, I'm not talking about having a bad issue here or there, but I mean, the ones who you see them, every post is something snarky about comics. It's really? Out of everything you've read this week, what comic shop are you going to, or what books did you see that you completely missed all the good stuff? I mean, or the people that have abandoned something and they still feel a need 8 months later to do a commentary on it. Well, I still think that sucks. Well, you don't know what it's like now. You abandoned it 8 months ago. Yeah. So, walk away and talk about the thing that you're reading now. You're really missing the point of comics when you don't have those great books. But I don't know. Vertigo had a lot of stuff that was coming out that looked really interesting to me. I think it'd be fun to do those, though, and for you to approach it realistically. And I would encourage you to do that. When we have the episode, take a look at where you're at with your budget, with time and everything like that. What are the books that you would say, if any, that you would say to yourself, you know what, I can pull out this book and maybe put this book in its place, if any of them strike you that way. So I encourage you when we do the episode to approach it realistically. We can still do great reviews on what we're enjoying about the book, while at the same time hitting that kind of sweet spot at the end. Which books are we going to keep reading out of this batch? Some of them will likely be limited series. Some of them will likely be ongoings. Does that affect your decision-making process? I think that would be really fun to discuss on an episode. Whether it does or it doesn't, I think that would be the intriguing part of it at the end. Because we can still talk about how much we both liked the experience, and maybe some of them you don't. But at the end result, which ones, if any, did you say to yourself, I've got to find a way to fit this into my budget? So I think it'll be kind of fun to do it that way, realistically, because of it. I think there's an interesting episode to be had there. Jim, was there anything else from the news? I mean, I know the other news we're going to talk about this week, and we'll wrap up with it, is the news about TV and film. But was there anything about comic book-wise that you felt like we missed that you wanted to discuss?
No, I think we got it covered. Nice, light little commentary on C2E2.
Yeah, well, I get into the big conventions. Whether I'm there or not, it's the news. And I think more important when we do these episodes, I think we've gotten better over the years. At least I hope we have. It's my perspective on it. Instead of regurgitating the news, it's what do we feel about the news? I think that's more interesting for the person listening than they've already read it.
Agreed.
And I want to thank our friends at DCinfinite.com for providing such great commentary and coverage of it, because to me, that's having a go-to source that is so well put together has made it it's exciting for me to be able to go there, and they're just doing a tremendous job over at that website. If you have not been to DCinfinite.com, this isn't like a paid advertisement. They're friends. And they've become friends because we love what they're doing. So it's a personal shout out versus a paid shout out or anything. And I want to make it a point to that. Now let's talk about the news about film, because we've been saying for years, the payoff of DC Entertainment becoming a multimedia company was comic books, games, and film kind of expanding out into, and toys and all that stuff, expanding out elsewhere to get these characters into people's hearts and minds. There is going to be a Justice League movie that could be released as early as 2018. Now, woohoo! Yeah, exactly. And, the other developments there's 8 other films that could be in development. And when they could be in development, they're names that have been thrown around like Metal Men, Shazam, 100 Bullets, Fables, a Sandman film, Justice League Dark, a Wonder Woman film, as a possibility, and a solo Batman film with Ben Affleck. On the TV end, The Flash, iZombie, Gotham, and Constantine. Now, these aren't guarantee for all of these things that we're throwing out, but these are things that are in development right now. I like hearing that they've got a lot of things in development, and they're not just always going to Batman and Superman. I want more Batman and Superman. That's not a dirty thing to say. I want all of those. But I also want them to explore some of their other properties as well. I want more. I went this weekend to Amazing Spider-Man 2. And I'm not going to get real spoilery on it here because I don't think you've seen it yet. Am I right?
No, I have not seen it yet.
It was so mind-blowingly cool. I thought it was better than the first. And I loved the first, so it's not a knock or a dig. What I liked about it is they took me on an emotional journey where certain events mattered. And I'm going to leave it at that. Like when something happened, I was emotionally invested. When a film can do that for a character that we know and love, I really, really loved it. I'll leave it at that. One of the reasons why I'm throwing that out there, though, is I think we're seeing more and more great comic films. This is summer of Cap 2. It's the X-Men, Days of Future Past. I'm an X-Men junkie. I read that story as it was coming out back in the day. The idea of that coming to the big screen is tremendous. When they're announcing all of these properties potentially being in development for film, thrilling, because they will work on the big screen. And I hope if half of them see the light of day, we are in for some really cool stuff.
Yeah, it's funny because at work I've got a couple people who are geeks. They're not not completely comic book geeks, but some of the genres, it's an overlapping. And Constantine is an overlapping that they don't consider themselves a comic geek, but they love Constantine and they love what's going on with him. And even like the Keanu Reeves movie that came out, they love that, and they're like, this is so everything that's announced with him. And then with the Del Toro's Justice League Dark, I was talking to them a little about it. I'm like, well, if you like Constantine, the Del Toro Justice League Dark should be something you should look into, and that's something you may enjoy as well, because it's that same the magic universe and that same type of the kind of the coolness behind it. So these announcements are kind of something I'm looking forward to, but it's also something that I have people who they watch the movies, but they don't read the comics. Mm-hmm. So if we get more stuff out there, if we get more DC stuff out there, there's this fan base out there that's a movie fan base that, who knows, maybe we can pull some into comics, or maybe even just they can enjoy the stories.
Yeah, I agree. That's I'm looking through actually some of the other news that was on there. Like they were talking about Gotham, the Bruce Wayne in Gotham, and I actually really like this. Diane Nelson said that they've encouraged different takes on the characters. So the Bruce Wayne in Gotham is actually different than Ben Affleck's Batman. And I'm okay with that, because they said it's still unknown if Arrow, The Flash, or other TV versions will be in the same universe as Man of Steel and Justice League or not. I don't care either way. And I think it's funny how after you read that and know that they've at least addressed that, I like the idea that these properties, like, I'm all for an idea if they try again another all-ages Batman cartoon. Mm-hmm. You know, I think it's okay to take these characters and have them reach out to different audience. Here's a great example. I'm playing that Scribblenauts Unmasked DC game, and I've played the Lego DC games. They're more family-friendly. You know, it's taking the same characters and just having them in family-friendly, fun environments. I'm also reading the Scribblenauts Unmasked comic book and greatly enjoying it. It's family-friendly. It's fun. It's kind of, makes me smile. And I don't mean that in a diminishing sense. I like the break, to be able to see these characters in kind of a different light. Yet, when I play Batman Arkham Origins, they just released the new Mr. Freeze download content. That's very gritty. And, kind of like, the Dark Edge Batman that, we're reading more in the comics. I love that too. I think these characters are not one-trick ponies. They are malleable. And they can be released in different formats that are appropriate to different audiences. And there's nothing wrong with doing that. So I like seeing different opportunities, and I like that that's the theme. Let's get our characters out there to a variety of different ones. So do I care if Arrow becomes a part of the film universe? No. Would I like it? Sure. A certain geeky part of me would like him to be in the films because I love the actor who's playing Arrow. I think he's just nailing it. If it's not him, or if they don't have Green Arrow in the film, I'm cool with that too. I just would like to see it because I just think he can translate. Especially with the latter part of this season, there's no reason why that guy couldn't be in those films. Just make him Arrow forever. He should, like Hugh Jackman does with Wolverine. He does solo projects, but then winds up being in the big budget X-Men films. I don't know. Let's keep him going forever.
He's hitting it. So this is a really cool Arrow, and it's a really, especially the villain cast, etc. That's been in the TV show would be awesome on the big screen. So, But again, I'm with you. Where if they decide no, we're going to go this way, I'd be okay with it because I still get this great Arrow. I still get this great character. I don't think that it means that everything TV has to be in that same universe, though, and I'm okay if it's not. I would assume if Arrow is, that Flash would be. Yeah, he'd have to be.
Kind of like duh, but that doesn't mean that Gotham needs to be.
No. And just like, Gotham, and again, when the fact that they declared it up front makes me feel, okay, good. Okay, move on. Because, as fans, we have multiple universes. We have, the various, incarnations and, existences of these characters. So we can do this where we can keep them separate. But I like the fact that they upfront and declared it for Gotham. I would like them to have that same declaration for Arrow, just because. But I want to know. Do they have to make that declaration if they're not sure? Like, I would rather, if it's on the table for discussion, don't make the declaration. Right. Oh yeah, if it's just saying it's unknown, and I would leave it. I'm happy with that. I'm happy with it being unknown. I don't think, like in Gotham, saying that that's different than Ben Affleck's right now, because they know that because of the direction they're heading with both. Cool. Get that out there. I like knowing that. That's interesting to me because now when I watch Gotham, I'll watch it as its own thing and appreciate it. The same way I would like Smallville versus Man of Steel. They're definitely not connected. Right. And I'm perfectly fine with that. The George Reeves Superman is not connected to Smallville. I love that stuff though. So I'm cool with all of that. So, I don't know. I don't know if they have to necessarily spell it out for us right now. I'm with you in the sense that when they know, I want to know. I want that information because I think that kind of fan outreach and making us a part of it, your point's well met there. We want to know things. Let us know. Give us the wink and the nod, knowing that we kind of care about that stuff. And I also think that drives DVD sales. Knowing that the Arrow that's going to be in the Justice League film is the same one that's on TV, that's going to drive DVD and Blu-ray sales of that show for people who maybe haven't watched it. Mm-hmm. So there's kind of a win-win there. So we'll see what happens. Ray Fisher cast as Cyborg. I don't think we've discussed this, have we?
I think you and I discussed it on the phone.
Yeah. I never know what is our conversation and what's on the podcast sometimes.
Well, you mentioned that you were really hoping, casting-wise, that it would be somebody younger to kind of fit the current New 52 storyline for Cyborg and the way that it goes. And we're getting that. So how are you feeling?
Oh, definitely happy with that. Yeah, I think when it was right around the time when The Rock, when Dwayne Johnson was, said to be part of it, and people were throwing out, is he going to be Cyborg? And I was like, he's awesome, but I wouldn't want him to be Cyborg, because I'd want somebody younger. And so I'm happy with it.
Yeah, it sounds like the Batman-Superman film is going to be a quick introduction of some of these characters, because they said he's not going to have an overly large part in the film.
Yeah, I think these are just going to be blips in there. The main characters are going to be Batman and Superman, and all these other people are going to probably make appearances some way, shape, or form.
To build the 2018.
Up for the Justice League movie, yeah.
I think that's cool. That's the way you should do it. I'm very excited. I mean, this to me shows planning. So this stuff, I'm all for it.
Yeah, you need to have this build and this anticipation and where it's going to go, and I think this was, part of me wonders if the delay in Batman versus Superman was because of all this building, or is because they knew what they were going to be going up against this year. So where's the delay? And I'd like to think it's because they're doing their planning and they're making sure we got to have all our ducks in a row. So we hit bam, 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 and firing on all cylinders. And the stories that are coming out and just everything the announcements that are coming out, they're building. It looks like they're like, okay, this is how we have to do it. Let's get this in line. And so I'm definitely happy that it looks like we're getting a conscious planning on their parts, and just the ground floor, everything's being laid out nicely.
There was a trailer for the next DC animated release, Assault on Arkham, which is going to be based on the game universe, it looks like.
Ooh, nice.
And I'm really excited about this. Kevin Conroy's coming back.
Yay.
So it's going to be kind of cool to see
I'm more
that.
understanding with when it's not his voice than I was in the past. But when it is his voice, I do get happy, because he has that just from, back in college, high school, when the Bat stories, when that first Bat animated series was out, he was the voice, and I was like, man, this is a great voice for Batman and for Bruce Wayne, and I was very excited about it. So whenever he comes back into the role, whenever he's back doing it, I always have a little bit of it always brings a smile to my face.
Well, here's the lineup. It's going to be Deadshot, King Shark, Harley Quinn, because it's Batman and the Suicide Squad.
Oh, nice.
Captain Boomerang, the Riddler, Killer Frost.
Oh, cool.
Amanda Waller, obviously. The Joker will play a part in it.
Now, are we going to get the Mark Hamill Joker, or is he done?
I don't know. They didn't say.
Oh, okay.
So I thought he was done. I thought he said he was done. That doesn't necessarily mean that he is, but I can't help but wonder if a certain other film franchise might be taking up his time.
Yes, I think that's yeah.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. It says Troy Baker as the Joker.
Oh, okay.
I would guess that answers that question. Yeah, Mr. Skywalker will be busy elsewhere.
Yes, may the Force be with him.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I really am. That's kind of cool. So, I don't know. I'm excited for that. More Batman stuff coming. Did you get Son of Batman yet?
It hasn't come out to the store yet.
Okay. Because I get messed up with the digital releases. I always get mine through iTunes, just because we have an Apple TV here. So, I like watching them on my iPad, my phone and stuff like that. But I also like watching them in our living room right from the Apple TV from our iTunes account. I got mine. I do the digital pre-order for them, and I got mine that way. But as soon as it comes out, we're going to do an episode on it. So that will be coming down the road. So we are going to do an episode on it. And I like doing the animated releases every so often. It kind of gives us a different sort of episode for the show, so I would be excited to talk about that. And obviously we'll do this Assault on Arkham when it comes out as well. I hope these animated releases for DC are doing well, because I like them. I like getting more, content, and I think it fits a different niche. For myself, it does. I'm loving the current television product. I like the direct-to-film, product going out in the movie theaters, and I like these as something else. It's I don't know. I just want to see more content from DC, so I'm glad that they're, fishing stuff out to a variety of markets.
And with them pulling from the video game to make the next movie, because I never played the video game. I've only, you've showed me it a couple times. We've talked about it a couple times, and I always said it's a neat concept and it sounds kind of fun, but I never sat down. I've never bought the gaming system yet. I've never bought the game. I've never actually played it. So, but I've always said I wish they would do a movie based off of that universe. So I'm kind of excited to see that universe come to something that I can actually sit down and watch and enjoy. And I hope that's something that doesn't turn people away from saying, "Hey, I'm not getting the game. I'm not playing the game."
It's an original story set in that world.
Yeah.
So I don't think you need to have been. There's nothing from the trailer that makes me look at it and go, "Wow, you need to be playing the game to understand this."
Cool.
So I think it's very much what you're asking for, and your point's well met. Is it going to be something that's accessible to everyone? It looks like it.
Cool.
I think for people that aren't playing the game, it's going to watch like an Elseworlds, which yay.
Yeah.
Because the game plays like an Elseworlds.
Oh, okay, cool. Maybe I'll try to figure out this whole digital download thing.
Yeah, so it'll be fun. But I mean, it's going to be released on DVD the same way that every other one is. So we can always wait and do it when you get it on DVD or Blu-ray or however you get it. Either way, I think the important thing is just doing an episode on it because I think people would enjoy that. So we will be doing episodes on both. It's funny, Jim, how we have we make rough outlines of plans for the episodes before we record them, and then we take a look at books that come out during the week and adjust accordingly. In the case being The Flash. The Flash, we wanted to discuss issue number 30 originally because of the fact that it was a brand new creative team coming on the book, which we haven't seen since the series kicked off. And the annual came out as well since then, continuing this storyline. And we were just debating back and forth, should we start with 30, should we start with the annual? And we kind of decided to start with 30 and talk about it casually and lead into a big discussion about the annual because of the fact that it'd be interesting to talk about this creative team. So let's talk first. Issue number 30, Robert Venditti and Van Jensen are the writers. Brett Booth on pencils, Norm Ratman on inks, Andrew Dahlhaus colors, Desi Cienti on letters, Booth, Ratman, and Dahlhaus on the cover, Anton Emiden, Mad Variant cover, apologies for name butchery there, Katie Dury as the associate editor, Brian Cunningham, group editor. I'm not going to apologize for any apparent name butchery on that, because Flash has been a book since the kickoff of the New 52 that has been drastically important to me. I've used the word stylized many, many times. I don't know if that's the correct term or not. It's something that, it's a mood that I'm left with when I read The Flash, because the book was so crafted in writing and art to be its own unique piece that really fit around the character. So to follow up that book with how important it's been to me, you got to get a creative team that nails it. And between this and the annual, they've really got me excited about The Flash. And I've already been there, and you got to keep that excitement going. The stuff that's going on with Barry and Iris and, his surrogate dad, and this idea of this crisis happened, this event, Forever Evil, with the crime syndicate. Now we're seeing the aftermath of this. Time has passed, and we're seeing that this would drastically affect the Flash's life. But specifically, I'm really into how it's affected the police force. This was a traumatic crisis. So now we have to find out, are our members of our police force ready to tackle the day-to-day of their jobs, mentally, emotionally? That's a key piece to what's being done, and I really like the exploration of that in this issue. That was something that really struck me. I don't know if it fit you the same way as it did for me.
Oh, God, yeah. Post-traumatic stress disorder, survivor's guilt, all types of stuff goes into hand in hand when you're dealing with any type of tragedy, whether it's police, whether it's military, anybody or firefighters, big time, have this where you're sitting there and you're seeing your friends die, and you're seeing your partners and your people who you're alongside with, get killed in the line of duty. It's tremendous on you. Add to it a level of your city is being destroyed. This type of stuff is going to rock these guys to their core, men and women. I say guys, I am referring to male and female officers.
I do that all the time.
But I don't know. I always say that, so but I do want to throw it out there that everybody is affected by this, and this is something that's tough to deal with in the real world. And you add into this, universe where everything really went to an nth degree of magnitude, that guess what? You're going to have these type of reactions. And I was so glad to see that a title that is so police focused. That is, the main character is a police officer. The main character right there is in the police station, and he is part of the team. So I love seeing the fact that they're showing this is how it's affected. This is what they're dealing with. And even the toughest of the police officers are affected by this. And they got to go through this. And they'll put the tough facade on and like, hey, I'm a tough guy. But in reality, it's killing them. And they need to, you need to have these you need to have these discussions. You need to have these moments. And I loved seeing that. And I loved seeing the rebirth of Central City.
I liked the visual of the damage. Seeing that the graffiti on the police station, Pig Central, things like that. And I'm with you. I need a better term for gender neutral, where I say guys all the time. And I'm terrible with it. And it's not meant to be an insult. It's just, you get into habits. And it really is with the intention of, I use guys as a term meaning both male and female so many times, hey, you guys, that.
Exactly.
And it's never meant to be an insult, but I'm just so terrible at coming up with a gender neutral term, because, hey, you gender neutrals doesn't really sound right. But in this particular case, this series, one of the things that I've really liked is Barry Allen out of the costume as much as in the costume. There's an importance to crafting that world, because I think that's what distinguishes the Flash's world from other characters. And that makes the character very strong and endearing to me. I've been a big advocate for the Flash, and it's one of those books that I wish we talked about more on the show, because this is one I've never stockpiled the Flash. There's never been a reason for me to. I've just loved this book from start to finish. We talked about that earlier, and different titles do that for different people. So there's not a right or wrong answer as far as what you do, but this has been one of those shortlist books for me. It takes me back to some of my favorite runs of The Flash. When Jeff Johns was doing it, when Mark Waid was doing it. The New 52 version of The Flash has been fun. And that's what The Flash should be. Yes, there's dark moments that happen in The Flash, and we're going to talk, we get to the annual, we're going to get to that. But the beauty of the annual is it dances in the present and in the future. And this future that's being crafted here is very dark, but at the same time, we get the light of the present with this Barry. I really like Barry Allen. Like, I want to hang with Barry Allen. Not just the Flash. I want to hang with the guy out of the costume as well. And Barry's a guy. He's the dude. Like, you could, I could see fist bumping Barry Allen and just really enjoying being around this guy. They've done a great job of crafting a character that feels like a friend.
Yes. Oh, definitely. And, you talk about just, people hanging out with and just being a friend with. I would want to be his friend, but I don't know, because people a lot of times around his circle don't end well. Things go badly for them. And, and his friends and his personal social circles, and there is a bit of a black cloud over Barry Allen in that, it's tough being family with him.
That's a very valid point. And even if you're a female character associated with Barry Allen, it tends to be the people that are around you are in danger as well.
Wally!
Yeah. All right, let's jump to it.
Let's just jump to it.
What do you think about Wally? We're doing a young Wally, looking back to the core of kind of Barry being a mentor to Wally. So they're going back to that kind of feeling. But today, bringing it very current, he's Iris's nephew, which is traditionally what we've got from the history of the character. I liked her outreach to Barry to be that adult mentor. It felt very today and very current, yet the wink and the nod to the past. You don't... let me make an assumption here. What is your history with Wally? Go, because where I'm going with this. You were about to say
you don't have a history with Wally, which would be a very accurate statement.
Okay.
I really do not have a lengthy history. He's a blip on mine where, Wally West was the Flash and this and that. I always used to joke around that Bart was my Flash, because that's really what I started reading the books. It was with him as Kid Flash and then him as Flash, and then they brought Barry back, and so it was just, I've never really had a Wally West Flash experience. I've read some stories, and I think we've done some stuff with Wally as the Flash, and he's a cool character. And I'm not knocking what was done in the past. So for me, for them to change anything around with Wally, I'd be like, oh, okay. They could have completely revamped this character, and I wouldn't have really noticed, because I don't have that much with him. So I want to see a story. I want to see something that's being told. And, they're laying this groundwork. And you talk about dancing from the present to the future and back and forth, how they're doing that. It's kind of neat showing Wally that they introduce him page 1 as being dead here. And then they show later on him being introduced, him alive and, and kicking in the annual. So it's the whole process of, how the story is maybe going to end, but you're also dealing with this Flash who's going to do some time travel, who's going to do some time jumping, who's going to do some altering of the past, and how well is that going to work for him? So I'm definitely excited to see Wally, seeing how he plays out, see how he affects Barry and vice versa, and what does this mean for Flash? What does this mean for, is there going to be a Kid Flash? Or, what does this mean for, this universe? This is something that I'm really excited for, and how we had that same excitement level when Aquaman, was first relaunched. I was like, yeah, this is awesome. And then as it continues on, I'm still pumping, hoorah for Aquaman. Well, I'm doing that with The Flash now. I always enjoyed The Flash, but this last run with the Flash has gotten me more and more excited. And I have to say, 29, 30, and the annual has gotten me to the point where I'm like, you know what? This is really good stuff. I want to see this. I want to get this, and I'm excited about The Flash, and I want to, it's kicked up my energy levels these last couple issues.
So for you, it's put you in a different place. See, for me, it was a continuation of where I was already at, and I don't mean that as an insult. Definitely. I mean, like it's kept. I was already super excited about The Flash, so I was very worried about losing some of that. In your case, it seems like it's had a different effect, where it's taken it to a different level. Were you in that same place? I think you've said on the show times before that you weren't in the same place with The Flash that I was.
Right. Yeah. This has definitely elevated The Flash for me. I enjoyed The Flash. It was never on the chopping block, but I was never hoorah, thrilled, excited. Oh my God, I got to read more. I am now hoorah excited to read The Flash.
And see, I always was hoorah excited. The book struck me from the beginning. So that's cool. It's kind of hit you in a different way. That's where it sometimes transition to new creative teams, and that's actually good commentary to say to somebody if you dropped The Flash because it wasn't your cup of tea. Just based on your comments there, this is a good jumping on point. Where would you recommend? Would you recommend 29 being the starting point or 30, Jim? From your experience, I'm talking about.
Well, see, for me, 29 because it was the ending, but I liked 29 because I liked the ending of what they were leading into this, and then they go into here. Mm-hmm. But in reality, you could jump in on 30.
Yeah.
And just go forward.
I'm talking about for a newbie. I think 29 might have too much.
Right. It probably would be. You could get a little lost as to what's this? Wait, why is this? But for me, as I said, that was an excitement point. I was like, oh man, this is awesome. I'm like, hey, I wonder where they're gonna. And it was that this was a really cool ending. I liked the ending of the story. Then I was like, I wonder where they're gonna go with. And then 30 hits. I'm like, oh, this is cool. This is neat. And then the annual comes out. I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome. So I think 30 and annual would be a good jumping on point.
Because 30 is really post Forever Evil.
Right.
So there's a nice jump in the series where you're really on a starting point. So for somebody, if you're like, I've always wanted to try The Flash, but I don't want to get kind of bogged down on what's gone before. 30, I would recommend, because I'm even more so, I'm kind of answering my own question now, kind of talking it through with you. 29 was right. You're right, a brilliant ending of what came before, but if you haven't been invested in that, you're better served starting with 30 for right now and getting to know the character. Because I think it really was a great issue. The artwork I want to compliment too, the Brett Booth art. I just think this is really a good-looking book.
Oh, God, yeah. And just, I was sitting there, and again, my read-throughs are a read-through, a regular story book, just read-through, then that art read-through where you just sit back and it's the little side stuff, a lot of the facial expressions, and I know a lot of that is also inking. So this is a great pencil and inking team. So you got to give credit for on both sides of this, because a lot of those really cool etching faces and the close up of the eyes of Barry, a lot of times you get some really just emotion, and part of that, and again, even colorists as well. Let's throw a full creative nod to a full creative team here, because there's a lot of emotion being told on these pages. And we've talked about before, it's, this is a flat, image. This is a two-dimensional image, but it pulls you in. And I got to say, I'm really digging this. And, just my second art read through where I was just looking at the images, just going through one page at a time. It was really enjoyable.
One of the things I've always found endearing about Barry Allen, I'm going back to my childhood with Barry Allen. It's funny how I kind of misrepresented myself on the show with saying Wally West was my Flash. As a kid, I read a lot of broken issues of Barry Allen's run through flea markets. It's funny how flea markets come up on the podcast again and again. We used to get like big boxes of comics from flea markets. And sometimes you get 2 or 3 issues of a comic in there, like concurrent issues of a comic in there. The Flash was one of those where I'd get those from time to time. And the one thing I always vividly remembered from Barry was that this is the fastest man alive, but in his personal life, he's always late because he's the Flash. He's doing other things, and that's time keeps on moving no matter how fast you are. I loved the use of the watch in this because we got to see not only the watch as a tool to emphasize again that and his girlfriend trying to be sweet and saying, hey, I want to give you this gift that would help you be on time to the places you need to be to kind of keep your personal life together as well. But also, besides that, we also see that his powers affect time to a certain extent. Because this is a watch that's geared to always be on time.
Yeah.
But by the end of the issue, it's not. And
he starts losing time, yeah.
Right. So it's a show how time is affected by his powers, which leads into the whole time travel concept that we start to see more of with the much older Barry Allen. Which, I don't know about you, when I saw the previews for that, I thought that was going to be Wally.
Yeah, me too. Oh, yeah, I didn't think it was going to be Barry. I was thinking 2 separate people, the blue Flash and the red Flash fighting each other. Like, no, it's the same guy. This is what he becomes.
I like that. I like the swerve.
Oh, definite.
Because I saw it one way and I liked being surprised. And I think if I didn't like the introduction of Wally, I'd probably be saying that differently now. But I really did. You read Wally on the show when it was the Flash family.
Right.
Wally and his 2 kids.
Yes.
And when he was married. That was when Freddie was doing the artwork on Wally's book. And Mark Waid came back. But Bart, as you'd mentioned previously before that, was your Flash. How do you think, that with what's gone on with Bart in Teen Titans, Wally has the potential, I don't know if this is where they're going to go with it, to become the new Kid Flash? How do you feel about that with where this is going right now? I mean, if the story goes in the logical progression of Barry saving Wally, Wally being mentored by Barry, eventually that leading to potentially Wally being accidentally turned into Kid Flash, because that's what happened the first time through. I don't know if it's going to play out the same here. It's kind of a wait and see what they're going to do. And I like the mystery of it. But how would you feel about Wally, this new Wally, becoming a new Kid Flash? Or do you want to see the one that's in the future come back as Kid Flash?
See, that's a tough call, because I do want, Bart to come back and Bart to be the, Kid Flash and just have him have this happy life. But where they're laying that out, Bart can actually have his life and can still be a Titan and still can be the Flash and still be a hero where he's at. So I'm like, let's keep Bart there. Let's let him and Solstice do their thing and actually be Titans where they are and do the right thing there. Yeah, but tell me that story. I want to see that story. But we have this opportunity for Wally, and I'd like to see a young Wally West being a Kid Flash and have him. Ideally, in my head, I think the story's going to go because Barry goes back in time, saves Wally, but he's going to supercharge Wally somehow because of all the time travel and because of all the excess energy that the Blue Flash has built up. Some's going to get transferred into Wally, so Wally will have a tap into the Speed Force, and it won't be as fast as Barry because he's not completely as Barry, but it's one of those where the energy's out there. It's got to go somewhere. Energy never disappears. It just gets redirected. Well, some of it's going to get redirected into Wally, I think. So that's how I think we're going to get a Kid Flash. Now, I could be, again, completely wrong. And let's just see where the story goes. We got some cool storytelling already happening. So this is a creative team I'm comfortable with and I'm confident in. I want to see where they take it.
I want you to be right. I want it
Yeah.
to be Wally West, the Kid Flash of today. I think this is a good opportunity to give us a classic Kid Flash, but modern. You know, an interesting balance of both. I think if you hit the concept right, because it feels very fresh in the way it's being told here, the right amount of winks and nods to what worked in the past, to the right amount of fresh for a new audience. I think that, to me, you're missing a good opportunity if you don't head that route. And I don't want it necessarily, you know, rushed. If I like the idea that it happens accidentally through this whole process, cool. You know, whatever that looks like, I want to see it. The introduction of him, because I think for me it was so out of left field, because I was expecting something very different. I thought we were getting two adult Flashes. And when I say two adult Flashes, Barry Allen being our current red and yellow, and the blue guy being Wally. That really struck me. I like that. I like those kind of surprises. You know what? I want to talk about that graffiti again, just to show how vicious the Syndicate was, and the Syndicate's followers were, and just how much they were, you know, I guess, flying in the face of authority. The graffiti is all over the inside of the police station. Like everywhere you can imagine. I can imagine if you look under desks, you're going to see it there, like you would gum being stuck under a school desk. It may be spelled in gum underneath there. You know, you see it on different walls as we're going through the records room. You know, straight on through to, you know, finally we go down to meeting with the psychologist, to having a talk about where is Barry at. And to see that with his coworker walking out, and knowing that later on in the issue we're going to find out that his coworker really isn't as adjusted as his coworker's implying, that kind of stuff just adds a reality to it. Because the coworker came out and has one presentation to Barry, and we find out something else later.
Yeah, and I love that.
I did too.
Yeah, but even the panel right before we see it, they're showing the outside of the doctor's office, and the one window has been boarded up because obviously it was smashed. You know, so, and again showing there's a little bit of sign of some graffiti there as well. So again, everywhere you go, you see the destruction. Everywhere you go, you see this chaos and this being reborn. You know, and the city, you know, trying to fix itself. And I think that is a cool statement about Central City and just about the citizens, about, you know, Forrest, who had that gruff exterior, but you see him in the park just weeping. And again, nothing wrong with what he went through. He went through a major tragedy where family, friends, you know, his team was, you know, slaughtered. These monsters took over and they completely tore up society. So it's, you know, when you're in the position where it's your job to protect and serve others, when you can't do it, it tears you up. And I loved the fact that they're showing this, and they're showing this side of it. Because, one, it is building to the guilt that Barry's going to feel. Yes. So he's to the point where he's going to want to do some time travel. He's going to want to try to change the past. He's going to try to do what he thinks is the right thing by, you know, doing some horrific stuff. But again, it's that, you know, how much does it take to push the hero over the edge, cross that line, you know? And we're seeing the ground floor, you know, just this groundwork of what these next 5 years are going to do to Barry, to the point where he's going to say, I've got to change this. I am the only one. This is the right thing to do.
Well, and I wonder if it will also help correct Barry's current path. Because you take a look at Barry right now, he's got survivor's guilt from the whole crime syndicate thing. So he is sort of heading down the path that he's in the future, in the sense that he's trying to do everything. And I can understand that, being a hero like Barry is. You know, you're the fastest man alive. You have the opportunity to do so much good, and you see the payoff in your city because you can do so much. You can go to so many places. So there becomes an investment in what you've created, if that makes sense. You know, as a hero, the Flash has created great things in the city, put away a lot of villains, and really, you know, tread a lot of ground. No pun intended. I mean, that really is the nature of the Flash. And we see it during the whole interview process. When he's going through, you know, this conversation, he's having that discussion while he's running around doing all these things, seeing what's going on with Forrest. Like, I loved him seeing that from the backgrounds, you know, sob, so many dead, why? You know, and really, he's able to catch everything. I think he is very reminiscent of today's society. We move at this pace. I'm not saying that we're the Flash running around, but I mean, we are so inundated by information. There's really very little time that we're disconnected. Like yesterday, I went to my niece's first communion, and this is the first time in months that I left my phone at home. And I realized it when I was down in the kitchen that my phone was upstairs, and I went to go grab it, and I'm like, no, this is silly. I'm going to go and be present at this and not worry about anything else. Because I don't do that. There's this need for immediacy of information that we can get. And I'm like sitting here like, why do I need to be on my phone at my niece's first communion? I need to be present and paying attention and enjoying her experience. So I went and I just did that, and just enjoyed that. It was kind of nice for a change to be off the grid, so to speak. So we went and did that, and we watched the Kentucky Derby and stuff like that. And the only time I ended up borrowing my dad's phone, because my dad set up a kind of a family betting pool on the whole Kentucky Derby. So I pulled up my phone for that to get the results, because we needed to know who came in last, because that was a potential winner. But other than that, I did not have any connection, which for me is like alien at this point. It was really pleasant. But I was looking at this Flash issue, and it was funny how I connected with it that way. This really matches. We have internet accounts, email accounts, Facebook, Twitter, Google+, all, Skype. We have all these different ways of interacting with each other, phone, texting, all of it. And usually multiple versions of those accounts that we connect with. And to see Barry doing this really is reminiscent of our society and the need to kind of pace yourself in all of that. It's not to say get rid of all that. No. It's how do you pace yourself so that you're present in other areas. And Barry's an example of trying to find that balance, especially post what he went through in Forever Evil. I think that's why I'm really connecting with this in a different way with these particular issues on the Barry side in present day. Because I think he is very reminiscent of how we are now. It's cool.
Oh, God, yeah. And one of the things that I really liked, and it was something that first read-through I thought was cool, but as second and third read-through came through, was the time when he's in the doctor's office and he's running out and doing his little stuff and fixing things. And I thought it was neat the first time, like, yeah, he can move so fast that she doesn't realize he's out of the office. But then you start looking at the different panels. You talk about when he sees Forrest crying, he sees the little girl asking for a dog, and then another panel when he's running, you see in the bottom corner, you see that dog eventually that's going to pop up in Forrest. It's eventually going to be the little girl's dog. So you see these little panels that play out, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. Oh, there's the little doggy, and then he's fixing the wall that people are complaining about. No, it's fixed now. And the distance, he sees the one accident about to happen, so he's running there. And the whole time he's doing this, the doctor's telling me, like, it's unrealistic for you to think you can be everywhere at once. You can't just, throw people in jail. You can't just, it's going to take time, and you got to let that side of it go. And I was, first read through, I'm laughing because, yeah, he can be everywhere. Then you start really thinking, this is the mindset. This is one of those burdens that the Flash has. Superman has the burden that he can hear everything. Uh-huh. He can hear all the cries for help and know he can't help them. Well, the Flash has the burden that he can be everywhere kind of at once, but he really can't be. He's got to accept the fact that sometimes you can't fix everybody. You can't save everybody. That's the hero burden, that you can't always save everybody. And I love just the fact that I'm really getting that, and I'm really understanding that for Barry, and just the kind of, again, this is setting up why he's going to eventually do some of the stuff he's going to do. And I'm like, man, that's kind of cool.
Forrest and the dog, was my favorite sequence, because that to me sums up Barry Allen. Barry pays attention to people. Barry's connected with people. Barry knew, how to connect the dots in that situation, and he did it. And there's certain points to that. That's where it's like, wow, what a nice guy. That part just made me grin from ear to ear. Flash is like your hero of hope. Like Amazing Spider-Man 2, the one of the central themes about it is that Spider-Man brings hope. And I'm saying that without spoiling anything. It's just the concept of Spider-Man, So I'll leave it at that. I'm not going to go crazy spoilery on that. I loved that, though. And when I see it here, Barry's that kind of character. He inspires hope. And I like that there's a distinction with him to other heroes in the DC universe. In just the way that he does that. He's real connected on the street level to people. Because of the fact that he moves on the street level. at very great speeds. And that's what I've always liked. And Wally did this too. It's one of the reasons why people who are Wally fans, I think, who maybe previously dismissed Barry being returned, are now feeling and connecting to this book in a way that perhaps that they didn't connect to Barry's initial return way back when. This is exactly what the Flash as a concept is all about. And I really love that they bring that in.
It's weird. I've read this thing multiple times now, but I'm just noticing the image on the lost dog sign. I saw the little girl with the sign, so I figured that's how Barry always saw it, but they actually have one of the panels where he's running by, and you can very clearly see that it's the dog. Mm-hmm. I just noticed it now, and it's a side panel. It's where Barry's running in when he's just about to drop the dog off with Forrest. But I'd never noticed that panel until just now as we're talking. I'm like, oh man, that's cool. Again, this art team is awesome.
Yeah, and I think when you do stuff like that, exactly what you're touching on, there's a benefit to rereading a Flash book because of everything that's going on. But also, it's that kind of thing that Barry moves at a speed that we can't comprehend. And you need multiple read-throughs to kind of comprehend things Barry's way. I like that, though. It's fun. Yes. It makes it like you're... This is where, again, we are big fans, I know you are as well as I am, about being able to go along on the ride for a hero. And I think this issue really captured that idea. It's funny how you and I were both debating whether or not to talk about issue 30. And we were like, oh, we'll just talk about it quickly. Yeah, that didn't happen.
I know,
which is a testament to the issue. I think this is why we were debating whether or not to discuss it. Too much happened in this to ignore it. The 2-second loss for Barry.
Yes.
His watch actually has changed time in the sense that there's a 2-second difference in a watch that's not supposed to be able to do that, which shows Barry's effect on the world. 20 years from now, we flash to it and we see for the first time this very, very distraught Barry still wearing that same watch. Woof. I love that costume, by the way. The 20 years in the future costume.
Yeah, the blue Flash, that does look cool.
Yeah. It gives us the cliffhanger of Wally being killed in a car accident and Barry's guilt to Wally being killed in that car accident.
Yeah, and it's, again, can he... I want to see what happens and why Barry is blaming himself for this. Because in my head, I'm like, there's no way... He should be blaming himself because, what happened in that car accident? And in the annual, even Iris touches on it. She's like, hey, I was driving the car. It's not like you were at fault, and she didn't know why Barry, wasn't, felt guilty on it. And I was like, I so want to see what happened. Mm-hmm. And that's the coolness of that teaser was the initial thing that really got me going. And then I read the annual, I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome. That's why I'm so jazzed about the Flash right now, because he is a cool hero.
That's why I think we needed to talk issue 30 as well, because I think it just builds into a much larger story. And I think if we ignore what we were digging about Barry in present day, it misses the point. I think there's a real point to these two connecting. I really think more and more as we're having this discussion, I think we're laying out why you need to read both of these books as a jump-on point. I think This is for somebody who's kind of like, hey, I've been interested in kind of getting on board the Flash. Where do I begin? To me, issue 30, just after having this discussion, oh my gosh, you so need to. If you're like, I'm not really ready to invest in both issue 30 and the annual, I want to just get a taste and see how I feel, I would pick up issue 30 and start with there. And if it feels good for you, continue on to the annual. I think there's no other way to do it. I think that's just really where your jumping on point would be as a Flash reader. If you were like, I've always wanted to get into the character, I can't go back and pick up 29 other issues, which I get. Budget. We talked about budget earlier. Yep. This is really a good starting point. Let's talk a little bit about the annual. You want to do the creative team on it?
Oh, sure. Let's continue on with Flash Annual number 3. The writers are Robert Venditti with Van Jensen. The pencils for the future Flash were Brett Booth, and the present Flash are Ron Frenz. The inks for future Flash, Norm Rapmund, with present Flash, Live Say. Colorist Andrew Dahlhaus, with letterer Taylor Esposito. Cover by Booth, Rapmund, and Dahlhaus. Assistant editor Kate Jury and Amido Totoro. Amedeo Mito. Not exactly sure, and the group editor is Brian Cunningham.
Yeah, and I know I butchered many of those names when I did Flash number 30, and I really, as a testament to them, want to shout out.
Just make sure, yeah, we get them right, because this is awesome.
The whole creative involved. It's one of the things as fans, I don't always understand how the whole creative process works, from writers to artists to colors, inks, editorial, letters. Letters is, I think, the most that I would love to, at some point in time, eventually talk to a letter on the show who could explain to us just how the lettering process worked, because I'm interested. I want to know. I don't feel as a fan I completely understand that process and appreciate it. I know that it brings something amazing to what I read. Yeah. We've thrown out at times where, there's font choices and letter choices that have really stood out for us. But a lot of times I feel that, they become unsung heroes because a lot of that stuff is meant to be subconscious. Where it's not supposed to be in your face. It's supposed to feed the theme, if that makes sense. So because of that, they're kind of unsung heroes, but that's because they do their job so well.
Yes.
So I think that's something that I would love to know more about. This book, I saw the original pencil and possibly ink work of this cover, and it was meant to be kind of a tease that Wally West was coming. So I assumed this was like an alternate universe or a future Flash, being Wally West coming to present day. I was more thinking alternate universe. So pleasantly surprised with what this actually is, because of the fact that it's a story that's taking a direction I didn't expect. And I'm really enjoying that part of it.
Oh, God, yeah. And again, just talking about, we talked last issue, just how beautiful the artwork. And this is something that the full creative team with pencils and inks working together, and the colorist throwing it in there as well. Just the emotional, just that's being portrayed on a lot of this stuff, and some of the background stuff where you see a grand reopening sign here. You still see some work being done in the background of another building being repaired and redone. This is a city that is coming back, and they're fighting back, and they're fixing and cleaning things up. And I love the fact that you just take some time and reread your book, or just do an art read where you're just looking at the images and spend some time, go slowly through it, enjoy it, because this art creative team really did a lot of stuff in the backgrounds where it helps show how nasty and how messed up Central City was. It's again an absolutely beautiful book that I keep throwing that out there, but I'm going to keep saying it again. This is one of those, wow, I'm really digging this.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. It's the reconstruction of Central City, and how it's in the annual. We're seeing between issue 30 and the annual, we're seeing this gradually happen. Where Flash is a part of that is something that for me is really standing out and exciting. There's a hope, again, increasing as this goes on, including the introduction to Wally, how we see him for the first time spray painting Barry. I mean, what a great sequence. It made me laugh. It made me chuckle. It also made Barry kind of stand back a little bit. I like that.
Now, my question for you, because I was wondering this, did Wally just spray over a Flash symbol, or did he spray paint the Flash symbol and then do the Ghostbuster through it? Did he do both?
I don't know. I can't tell if there's more than one. There seems to be only one can of paint.
Yeah, so that's why I was thinking he's going around finding all the Flash symbols that are out there and just doing the Ghostbuster over them, which I think that's actually, for me, in a way, it's kind of cool that he's taking all that effort just to find the symbol and then deface it, as opposed to drawing the symbol and then defacing it.
Yeah, in either case, I don't think it's implicitly spelled out either way. Either case, I'd be happy, but you're right. There is something to be said for having that. I love seeing that the Central City Police Department after that is in such good shape now. Look how quickly that's been reconstructed.
Yeah. Well, and they were focusing on it. And I wonder how much of that was the Flash doing it, and how much was Barry actually fixing stuff up, because we saw him fix up the file room. So did Barry go back and clean it up, or was it something that, hey, the cops have to do this, the city has to do this on their own? Or because that's something I always wonder, how much did Barry actually do? How much did the Flash actually do on this?
I don't know. I would imagine quite a bit, because he would be, we saw it in the last issue that these were things that he was involved with as he was running there. So I would imagine he continued to be involved in speeding things up to... I got a feeling Central City and Keystone City in the comics, one of the things I've always loved about them is they gradually develop more and more of a partnership with the Flash. In this world where people are leery of heroes, our modern world, I could see these being cities that start to embrace their hero in a way that maybe the rest of the world doesn't, if that makes sense.
Oh,
and
yeah,
they should be, because of the nature of the Flash.
Yeah, because he is that positive light.
Mm-hmm.
And it's Gotham has its dark brooding hero, Metropolis has Superman, dun, 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 but Central City has the Flash, and he is a part of this city, and you can tell he's not an outsider who comes in, and that was an issue that the Shrink identified in issue 30, that he's spent his entire life in Central City. He grew up, this is his home. So with the Flash, this really is his home. Now, of course, Bruce's home is Gotham. That is where he grew up in, etc. But I think there is a kind of a different connection that Barry has with the city, because he was, Central City public school. He wasn't, the rich private school, traveling the world, etc. He's always been here. This has always been his home. This has always been where he's hung his hat. And I think that, it comes through as how he is as a hero as well.
The part where he goes to Guatemala to get her, the treat that she was looking for, which she was hinting at.
Yes.
I like that. I've always liked that relationship. It takes me back to you and I talked about how we both enjoyed the show Lois and Clark. What I really liked about it was when Lois knew that he was Superman, they would do this kind of interplay. And we've shown on the show marriage versus not marriage, relationship versus not relationship, knowing versus not knowing. You don't want this reveal for all your heroes. But when you have this in certain books, it becomes endearing. It's something different. And I don't think it limits the storytelling. It increases the storytelling like you see here. Especially with the fact that you've got a love triangle brewing eventually.
Yes. And again, with me, I understand that Iris West is the great love for Barry Allen, but you know what? I really like this relationship. Mm-hmm. I really like Patty and Barry, and I think it's awesome that they're together. And I'm worried for her personal safety, of course, because what happens in the next 5 years? Because we see the future side of it. We see the fact that in the future, Barry and Iris are together. So if Barry and Iris are together, what happened to Patty? Is she around? Did she die? And I'm like, oh no, I don't want to lose her as well, because she's a great character. But what's going to happen? And these fun little moments, where he goes and runs and comes back and the coffee's cold. He's like, oh, what the heck? Come on. It's, little funny moments inside the story. And again, great art usage, great just, it's got to have that light and that energy to it. And I think that, to me, is something that when people always talked about the Flash, they always talked about that energy. They always talked about that light, that fun, that great hero who's, hey, he's as much a dun-da-da as Superman is, but not the big, flying and picking up buildings. Instead, it's the speed, it's the wit, it's the, it's the flash facts, it's everything that makes Flash really a cool book to read and, enjoy. You get that, and I'm understanding why everyone always had this great love for the Flash, because I'm seeing that in these issues, and I was like, dang, this is kind of cool.
Did what happened with Wally affect Patty and Barry on some level? Who knows? It doesn't necessarily mean that Patty's dead.
Right.
It could also mean there was something else. And does correcting this change and open up opportunities for either relationship? Who knows? That's what's interesting about time travel. And this book totally geeks me out when it plays around with stuff like that. You can overdo it, but when you do it in situations like this with Barry, where, this is a pivotal event with Wally. This is a great way to introduce him. The story's pivotal to making us get to know Wally. And also, this is a Barry from the future this is a kid who he loves. So that relationship grew exponentially somewhere along the way. So I'm anxious to see where this story winds up heading. Barry being in a situation where, okay, I'm trying to get back in good with the director, but he doesn't like me. We know Barry's really good at what he does. That's something that, is pretty critical on all this. He a lot of times looks incompetent because of his dual life. it's hard enough to maintain, we both know. I mean, how many times have you and I had off-the-air discussions about our own careers and, the demands and stresses of them? We both, like what we do and we take value in the work that we produce at what we do. But like any job, if you're doing it well, there's going to be times where, it gets overwhelming and there's stresses and you want, everything to just play out the way that it should. This is a great example of how, a story can and can't play out how it should. What happens with him and the director? We aren't living a dual life. And Barry is in the same time that he's trying to do his job. Imagine trying to maintain quotas. I was thinking of you in particular when I was reading this, because you wind up in similar situations to what Barry is, where it's like, I want this case closed.
Yes, yeah. You run into a lot of times where you're looking at your workload and you got to get this done, but you're halfway through it and you realize, guess what? This isn't a slam dunk. And you get to the point where that's where your professionalism, that's where the you get that moral quandary where, okay, I could very easily make this go away and I could very easily close it, but that's not the right thing to do. So I got to do this longer version and I got to go through this and I got to, slow things down and make sure I find everything and I see everything. So it was funny as you say that, because as I was reading this, I was like, oh man, especially when he handed him, I'm giving you a slam dunk. I'm like, oh, this is so not going to be a slam dunk for Barry. And just going into it, you knew it wasn't going to be, but okay, let's see what happens.
I had to create a Blizzard Bags website for our district, for the entire district. It had to be one that was able to easily be fed by the teachers in a short time span, but also was intuitive enough for parents that would go to it. And when I say the time window I was given, I had to create the website in one day and then gradually support it being fed with content over a 4-day stretch. So it was like a really, very much a pressure-oriented situation. I was relating to this, and I think everybody who's, reading this issue can kind of look at it and go, we've all been there. It looks different for every career. No matter what your job is, we've all been in this position before where there's deadlines. And sometimes that a specific deadline overtakes everything else you're supposed to be doing. You still have to do those other things. But this is the one that, it makes or breaks you. If you don't do it, it's on you. If you do it, it's on you. It's every level of it. And I think that's kind of cool relating to Barry on that level. I'm sure if people called in, they could share lots of stories where they related to Barry in that moment, and every career is going to be a little different in how it attached. That is good writing when you can connect in that way. I wanted to go and give Barry words of encouragement.
I know. It was funny because when we get this first introduction of Wallace R. West ready for discharge, it just, that whole play out between them. I loved, just again, talk about emotional portrayal where Wally goes from 1 second being the smug, hey, nice shirt, to being that kid sitting on the bench going, what the heck, and you feel bad for this kid. And you're like, oh man, within a span of 3 or 4 panels, I was like, man, you see what this kid's going through, and you see the path he's walking down now, and we know the future, so we're like, oh boy.
The outreach from Barry, where Barry was kind of, in some ways, either protecting Wally or protecting Iris there by not totally revealing how he knows Wally, I thought was great.
Yeah. Again, I'm wondering, because we know these two are eventually going to become friends. We know something's going to happen there. He's going to be like a son to him. He's going to be that mentoring father figure. And I want to see the process where they go from the smug kid who spray painted across his chest to the father figure. And just I want to see where that. I'm curious and excited to see that relationship. But again, as I say that, I'm worried that the Iris-Barry relationship ends the Patty-Barry relationship. But I'm hopeful that it's just she realizes and she moves to another city and she lives a wonderful, happy life with children and just everything she ever wanted. I'm hoping that's the case for Patty, but I got this feeling it ain't going to be.
Well, where are you seeing that Barry and Iris were together?
In the cemetery sequence.
She says, all this time, the years we spent together, the Flash was you. Does that mean that they were a couple, though?
That's how I read it.
Okay. Because I see the other, and I could see that being the case, but I could also see the other possibility. They spent a lot of time together working on things together, which we've seen already in the series. So it's not me saying that you're wrong as much as I'm not. I think that's a little vague in its presentation. It could very well be exactly what you're saying. The curious thing is exactly what you're saying, the omission of Patty. We aren't hearing a whole lot about Patty. What happened to Patty?
Yeah, no mention of her or anything like that. And it just, again, they don't have you see kind of a tenderness between them. When she's talking about, hey, I'm going to fix this. She's like, how? The only way I can. And just you see a tenderness there, but there's not like I don't know, an affection there, but there is still that closeness. And I love that sequence where she's like, hey, you remember what happened to Daniel and everything that happened with him when he tried to do the exact same thing that Barry's going to try and do. It doesn't work. You always come back. You won't come back the same. And I loved this again. I was like, wow, that pulled me in. That passion, that fire, just that. Then they go right now to present day Iron Heights prison. I'm like, oh man, this is awesome. This flip flop back and forth between the past and the future, and the present and the future. And it's funny because I started thinking about when we first started the show, how flip flops like this were confusing me, and I was like, why can't they just tell a story? I'm like, I'd like to now reach back in time, smack that version of me, and say, no, that's a cool storytelling element. And I think you probably said those exact words to me when I was making my complaints about it.
Oh, I'm sure I did, because I love that. But admittedly, that's somebody who I drastically love time travel stories, so I'm already in that place, admittedly.
Yeah.
Where I think it works here in particular, we really need the attachment to present-day Barry to not lose who he is, as we're seeing how dark things are for future Barry. Present-day Barry is a beacon of hope. He is ethical. The mogul situation where he's looking at that and going, the facts aren't adding up. This is a criminal, but he deserves a fair trial. He should not be behind bars for something he did not do. And I'm not seeing anything that's outlying that way. That was really important to see him say, I could make this an open and shut case right now. I really could, if I wasn't ethical. By being ethical, I'm risking the wrath of my boss because I want to do things the right way, which is a very hard, especially nowadays, very hard to do, because a lot of times we are in a era of numbers and quotas. And that's true of any business, any work, any environment. Education, we're full of numbers and quotas. Your business, you're in numbers and quotas. So many people are winking and nodding, going, yeah, we're all in that. And everything needs to move very, very fast, with productivity a lot of times not being driven by quality, but quantity. To see a guy like Barry going, well, yes, that's the way things are. And Barry's a guy who's capable of lots of quantity.
Yes.
But for him to say, no, there's a right and wrong. And if I go for quantity here, I could be abandoning completely the concept of quality and doing something that's downright wrong.
Oh, God. Yeah.
I love that about Barry Allen.
Oh, big time. And one thing I liked about this villain Mogul. Now, I don't know if this is a brand new person or if he's a long Flash history, but I like the fact that, again, we have another person who's a thief. He's not a killer. He's like, hey, I'm not a thief. I'm not a killer. I steal, and he uses it to create the slope, and he even says where it came from. And how it was, it was supposed to it wasn't supposed to be a weapon. It was just supposed to be so they could have year-round ski slope and something positive, but it didn't work. So he had to, fall back on, had hard times. They had to use it for this purpose. And I like seeing the fact that this is a guy who, yes, he's a bad guy. Yes, he's in prison. He should be in prison for the breaking and entering, etc. But when the crime syndicates showed up and they started doing all the craziness and he's like, hey, this is bad news. I'm getting out of here. Again, very realistic, very true to kind of a society situation where this is a guy who's not a hardened killer. He's not some monster. So he's seeing the writing on the wall, and he's going to ditch town. He's going to try to get away. I love the fact that we get this from this villain, which again gives us why Barry is going to not just railroad him. If he was some hardened killer, monster, Barry may have pushed it under the rug, may have gone with it, but he's like, you know what? Punishment must fit the crime.
Yeah, I can't really tell. I'm kind of looking through if this mogul's new or not, because I don't remember this character at all. I remember like the son of Mongol being mogul, right, but I don't remember, this particular character. And if it's an original one created for this, fantastic. It actually served the purpose that it did. We go from this to 20 years from now and the battle with Grodd.
Oh, man.
Where he's eating the brain of who would have been the Reverse Flash, Eobard Thawne.
Yeah.
It was and leading to this battle between this future Flash. And this is why I say you really needed this mirrored by the stuff going on in present day. Because I'm not especially with the Flash, I would not be for this. But we see a Flash who's not willing, who sets out with the intention to kill Grodd. And to use that as a way for him to get to present day, to put a stop to himself from causing the harm. And his justification that if I do this, you won't have to have died.
Yeah, I tell you, we talk about heroes killing. We talk about, which ones we're okay with killing. The Flash was always one that, in a way, I never saw as being a killer.
Right.
Because of just his personality. But I've always said that I understood if they don't take it over to the edge and they don't make it an extreme situation, I understand why some of these different heroes have killed, like Wonder Woman. I understand when Wonder Woman kills. I don't think I've ever had an issue when I've seen her, kill somebody, because it's part of who Wonder Woman is. And looking at with Barry, again, this is a person who's desperate, who's to the point where he's like, this is the only way he could go. But also in his mind, he is justifying that by killing you now, I won't have killed you, when I correct everything. So it's that ends justify the means. It's that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. There's all this stuff, but there is always going to be a price on this.
You know who would disagree? You know who would disagree with him?
Superman.
No. You know who would disagree with this Flash?
Who?
Present day Barry.
Yes.
And we see that in the sequence. That's the thing that I love about it. Present day Barry is not going to be okay with this Flash at all.
Oh, God, yeah.
And I think that's where it's going to change things for present day Barry, especially with the path that he's currently headed down present day, what we're seeing. I think we're going to see the Barry that said, I don't have time to mentor Wally. Maybe this will wake him up and say, you know what, maybe I can.
Yeah.
This is going to be the type of thing that's going to set in motion a path for, I think. I could see this being the catalyst to him saying, oh, maybe I can find time for this kid. I don't know. I that's what I'm hoping comes out of this.
And I wonder when is the blue and red Flash going to fight each other? Because it's going to happen. But how far back is this Flash going to go? Because does he go back to right after to the present day now Flash? Does he go to an earlier Flash? Because if he's got to take out Grodd, he's got to take out Grodd before Grodd gets the power. So that's going back before the crime syndicate arrives.
I don't think he's taking out Grodd, though.
Well, but I mean, if he's taking care of the breach in when I say take out Grodd, I mean taking out the breach the breach in the Speed Force.
He's talking about himself, Jim.
Yeah, how far back does he have to go?
He's not. No. He's not. But here's the thing: if there's a connection between him and Grodd, his feeling is if he takes himself out, Grodd no longer has that connection.
So he's gonna take himself out in the crib. Is what you're thinking?
I'm thinking he's gonna take him out present day, like before the events happen with Wally that would kill Wally. I think the Flash that we're seeing now currently is the Flash that future Flash is going to fight.
But won't Grodd already have? Grodd already has access to this, tapped into the Speed Force.
But he gets that connection through Barry. Barry's the conduit. Barry says that when he's talking to him during the battle. If you take a look at that battle, in his commentary with Wally, he said, your ability to tap into this is because of me.
Oh, okay. I see now. So if he kills present-day Barry, Grodd's connection to Speed Force is done and gone.
Right, because it bleeds out of Barry.
Okay.
What he's saying is, like, during that battle, how he says, look at what this battle's doing. Look at how we're opening this up. He's really reflecting on the fact that they are together, this kind of battery system, but he's totally linking it back to himself. So I don't think he's going back to him in the crib. I don't think it's going to be one of those things. We've already seen that. I think it's going to be him taking out Barry present day before the events happen to Wally. I think that's what he's going for.
Okay.
So I think, and we see at the end, like, kind of the next battle is going to be this new Future Flash coming in to take on Mirror Master present day.
Right.
So I think he's going to pop onto the scene, and we're going to see what this looks like. The question is, what does that mean for Mirror Master? You know, is this Flash, now that he's killed Grodd, would he do that in present day?
Oh, boy. Well, but if he's only thinking I've got to kill the future so I can go back to the past, he shouldn't be thinking I have to now kill Mirror Master.
But once you cross that line, once you've made that justification, where do you stop? Like, he looks at Mirror Master as a villain. What if he goes to, is he at the point right now, when you've done that once, that's the danger of crossing that line. Do you now know, like, look at Mirror Master when you come back and go, if I take him out, how many people will live?
Well, hey, true. That's always been an argument with the Joker and, with Batman. If he had killed Joker in their first occurrence, all those people would still be alive. But I'm still thinking that Future Flash is only thinking it's okay to kill Grodd because Grodd's never going to be dead when I fix things in the past. If he kills present-day Mirror Master and fixes things present-day, Mirror Master's still going to be dead.
Here's the thing, though. I think Flash is going to stop him, present-day Flash.
Right.
But my question is this Flash, this Future Flash, is he at the point right now where once you cross that line of morality, you start to question it elsewhere, whereas you wouldn't before? Like, the debate we talk about when you talk about characters like the Joker and killing all them, the line is always, well, Batman doesn't cross that line.
Right.
What happens when he does? Same thing with Flash.
It's easier next time. Yeah.
Exactly. Flash has crossed that line, so now all of a sudden morality becomes blurred because you have blurred it already. He blurred it here with Grodd, saying that it's okay because of the fact that it'll be corrected in the future. And is it okay to kill Mirror Master now because I won't exist? Am I doing a service and then I'm just going to end myself? I don't know. I mean, I'm curious. I'm throwing out there what ifs. Because this is where the storyline's gotten intriguing for me. Not that I'm saying I'm expecting him to come back and start killing all these villains. I don't see it that way. But my question is, where is he at? And take Mirror Master out of it. Take villains in general. Where is this guy at mentally now? Because by killing himself, what great good has he done along the way, too, that he's ending?
Yeah, that's why, where does he end the Flash?
Yeah. It's interesting. I kind of want to see where this is where, this guy now has crossed a line of morality. And there's a lesson to be learned here by present-day Barry to not become this.
Yeah, because we see Barry when he's dealing with the art thieves, where he has the chance, where the bad guys are going to shoot their boss. And even the boss is like, hey, if I was in their shoes, I'd do the same thing. But Barry isn't going to let somebody die. He's not going to take a life, or he's not going to, stop it's the death by omission. If he fails to save them, he's just as guilty as killing them. And it's neat to see that, and then he flashes back to the future where we see, Flash killing Grodd. And it's so you see that again, present day versus the future Barry, and what's in 5 years has led him to be okay with taking a life, and what has the pressure, what has built on him that he's now saying, yes, I have to do this. And it's a cool contrast in the two, because we get some great Flash stories with these sonic weapons and who is the person that hired these guys and gave them the Flash facts about how to slow down and stop the Flash. And they were ready for him.
I liked when he used the one guy as a bowling ball.
Yeah.
I liked that he had to make in that decision, do I let these guys shoot him, to avoid the bullets myself, or do I find a way to take them all out with nobody getting hurt? Showing who he is. And there was an importance in showing us those distinctions. Present-day Flash versus future Flash. Because we should not like what future Flash is doing. The present-day Flash is the guy we got to rally behind and root for. Future Flash is not who we want him to become.
No, and again, it's a lot of these side-by-side panels, because it's two different creative teams, and they do have a different look to them, but they match each other so well that I'm looking at two different Flashes drawn by two different people, but you know what? They fit on either page. This was a really cool choice on these art teams for the two different pages and for the two different styles for past and future. They fit with each other, they complement each other, but they are different enough that it's kind of gives you that feeling of Barry is a different person in the future. It's not just, you really get that feel from the different art styles as compared to what you get present day Barry. And some of these side-by-side panels, I just like to sit and look at and just say, man, that's cool.
That's one of the things that I really like about how this one all played out. Yeah. As I was reading it, was kind of seeing those distinctions. That battle was something that we kind of glossed over it real quick. But I like the idea of that technology being given to them by somebody who did the giving. Was it Mirror Master or somebody else? Like, is that the connection?
Could be. This could be definitely a Mirror Master thing, because Mirror Master does know the Flash well enough. So maybe he's constructing it. And again, you have a villain who's got the code. He's like, hey, I may be a crook, but I have a code. I don't rat. Not for any reason, not ever. And I like that. That's you enjoy seeing that. That is a classic Rogue thing, and this is about the score. They were stealing paintings. They weren't trying to, kill somebody. This wasn't an assassination mission. So it could very easily have been a Rogue who gave it to him. Told him how to build it. And again, cool Flash moments where he catches all the paintings and they're blasting him. So he's dodging the lightning, tosses the paintings into the one guy's hand who catches them. Then he takes the guy's weapon and completely disassembles it all in a blink of an eye. And I was like, dang, that is neat.
Can we talk about that Future's End little teaser that was in the 52 investigative report?
Oh, sure.
Just a little bit. It's obviously where when Future's End, the blood moon shall rise. And we're seeing different characters like Mr. Terrific being present there. A variation on Firestorm. It's obviously a future version of Firestorm. Can I say, I'm going to comment on Hawkman. That helmet is the one I want. Just, not that anybody cares, but that to me, like, I like, his Kurt Gear's fine, but that is Hawkman's helmet for me. That ornate thing that he's got on his head right now, I'm glad that it's him and he's there. But if we could take that thing off and plop this on his head, I'd be the happiest camper in the world. Or some version of this. That's kind of what I'm looking for. That's me being nitpicky. Oh, okay. Who is Robin? Who is the Robin up there?
I don't know. It looks like a male to me. And it's Booster Gold sitting next to him. So I'm assuming that's Booster Gold went back in time and got Dick Grayson.
Yeah.
That's how I kind of took that. And then you've got, in the one panel, you have, it looks like, Firestorm, Jason and Ronnie fighting, within the Firestorm matrix. But then you see a Firestorm out there. So, again, it's those two within him. You got the two Batmen. You got Frank and, what's her name? Amethyst right there in the middle. I'm like, hey, this is, and who is Superman? Who is that Superman?
And Mr. Terrific.
Yeah.
With the Terrific family, the Terrific team that they're referring to them as.
Yes.
I mean, that's really, really cool stuff. And obviously Firestorm is still Jason and Ronnie, but they're fighting in some capacity because you see them there in that panel.
Yeah.
But, I'm into this. It's cool to see Grifter back.
Yeah, Grifter, Apollo, and Midnighter. I'm like, yes.
Yeah. A lot of these Wildstorm characters that I want to see. I think I mentioned Grifter in particular just because we haven't seen him in a while. So, I don't know, I'm into this. It's looking cool.
Yeah, and the Future's End issue 0 that came out with Free Comic Book Day was neat, which we'll talk about later.
We'll talk about next week. That'll be next week. Yeah. That'll be a for sure next week. I think it's kind of a cool little teaser. That was a good point to end off on.
Yeah, I'm actually digging some of these stuff because you got, again, a nice tease about what is going on here with all the Brother Eye logos and the future, the Beyond Universe people appearing here, but you got some present universe, so who is who? What's what? I don't know. I like this. I like this nice tease. And the fact that it's somehow, because that's the bleed in the background to me, correct?
Looks like it.
Okay. So definitely Stormwatch, again, is going to be a part of this, and we see because of the Stormwatch characters, but how are they going to be in it? Are they the escape route for mankind? Are they, the hope for mankind? I don't know.
I don't either. And that's the part where it's really interesting to me. I want to see where that storyline goes. It's cool. Yeah. Yeah, I get excited for events. I like when they do these little teasers. That new 52 page at the end, I look forward to that every month, seeing what they're teasing or what they're reflecting on. Mm-hmm. I think it's a really good use of that page.
You filthy criminals.
Hey, Sean and Jim, Scott from the Facebook group. I just got to tell you, the countdown is on. Forever Evil number 7, my favorite character in the entire comics universe, not just DC Comics universe, comes back. Ted Cord. I have everything he's ever appeared in, even the awful Americomics Sentinels of Justice one they did. He's the best. I hope he's Blue Beetle, but honestly, I don't even care. As long as he's back and not dead, I'm cool with that. They sent him off in a pretty cool way, but I need him back. He's coming back now. Just kind of wanted to get your guys' thoughts on it. I know he's been dead since the entire podcast has been going on, unfortunately, and I haven't heard you talk about him much. Just experiences with Ted Cord, or whether you don't care for the character at all. But like I said, I'm pumped, and they can't come soon enough. And take it easy, guys. Bye.
Yeah, see, I don't know if he's returning as Blue Beetle or just returning as... I think he's just returning as Ted Cord, I think. Well, who knows, right? I did not know
he was
that
coming
news.
back.
Yeah, yeah. I completely missed that news, so I'm glad he brought that up. What is your experience with Ted Cord?
Well, when he died, when he actually died, I wasn't reading, so I went back after the fact, and that's how I read that whole... Because the Identity Crisis and all that stuff, I didn't read live. I read it after we started the show, and I went back and read it. So it's not... So my first introduction to him was his death. So I've never really had any lengthy, dealings with him. I've gone back and I've read some stuff, and seeing him and the blue and gold together, I always thought was kind of a neat thing. And then it was funny because I'm reading all this stuff after he's already dead and gone. So it kind of was like, oh wow, that's kind of neat. I understand why they killed him off, because he was such a beloved hero, because he wasn't the greatest hero in the world, but he was such that everyday, good guy that, for a really good story effect, he needed to die. So bringing him back, I'm really curious about it, because as I said, I didn't hear that news, so I didn't know he was coming back. So, wow, I like, Jaime as Blue Beetle, so I'd like to see him stay as Ted Cord scientist and not come back as Blue Beetle. But if he's going to be a Beetle, then okay, because he's a different type. He's not the fancy armor Beetle, so maybe he can be the Blue Beetle now, or maybe he'll be Ted Cord, or I don't know. This is definitely going to be kind of interesting and curious, and I'll be kind of excited to see how he plays out in the end.
Yeah, the Forever Evil event with him returning, I didn't catch that. I think sometimes I go towards some news and I stay away from others, not on purpose, just because I don't always want to know what's coming. That's a good one, though. It's interesting to me as far as, do I want Ted Cord to be Blue Beetle again? I kind of do, at this point, because the current Blue Beetle, it kind of hasn't had the traction that they hoped it would. So maybe let's give this guy a shot, and see where it goes. And it doesn't have to be in place of the other. We got 2 Lobos running around. Yeah. Why not 2 Blue Beetles? And you're right, he doesn't have to be the armor-wearing dude. We've already got Jaime for that, and I think he works so well. I'm not saying that I want Jaime gone. I would love to see the Ted Cord one make a return, though, if that's what they're doing. I liked him. I read his series. And not everything. I jumped on his series about halfway through when it was a solo series, just on a whim, because I saw the cover of it and I was reading DC at the time. Not everything, but I'm like, okay, let me see what this book's all about. And I had known him, I think, from Justice League. I don't remember what got me into the book. I just ended up picking it up and just reading his solo series, and I read it till the end. Then when I got into it, and what I found about him was he was kind of like DC's Spider-Man. Let me clarify that. I'm not saying he was a clone or anything like that. It's just because he was more lighthearted and fun. He joked around when he fought villains and stuff like that. It wasn't as slapstick as you saw in the Bwahaha era of Justice League, which I loved, so that's not a diminishing from that. But he, did the one-liners that you're used to kind of seeing Spider-Man do and things. So he was kind of a fresh face in the DC universe, if that makes sense. And he had his Blue Beetle ship that he flew around in. which I quite liked. You know, I'm always into vehicles because that made me feel like I could get in that vehicle and ride around and somehow, like, you know, he had gadgets and things, all the stuff I liked from Batman, but he was friendly, you know, so it was, he had the wealth and stuff, but he kind of did it in more of a accessible, friendly. Like, I saw him more akin to the Flash in his personality than to Batman.
Yeah.
If that would make sense. And I liked him a lot. I can't pretend I'm the biggest Blue Beetle devotee, but what I read of him, I greatly enjoyed. The second half of his solo series is what I read, and then I'm saying that loosely. Then I remember enjoying him in Justice League with Booster Gold, which is, you know, what I greatly enjoyed, and that was it. You know, as far as I'm not as rich of a fan as maybe some other people are.
And you know what? One of the things I remember about was the Booster Gold series, where he actually goes back in time and he changes and he saves Ted.
Yeah.
You know, and it completely alters the future. And then it's Ted who makes the call. No, I have to die. And Ted sacrifices himself so he knows the future will actually occur and that everything will actually happen in the way it needs to. And then just that I'm remembering those sequences, and then even afterwards where. Because the first time through, Booster couldn't talk at his funeral. Well, the future Booster went back and talked at Ted's funeral about, you know, his friend and his sacrifice and just everything with that. I was like, I'm remembering that stuff going, oh yeah, now it's stuff like that. That's my experience of Ted Kord. And I think that's kind of why I'm now thinking about this going, you know, this could be something kind of neat. And again, I don't want to lose Jaime because I do really enjoy him, and I wish we'd get more of him around the actual universe and him more in books, etc. But I don't know. I think we could go with having Ted Kord around and Ted Kord Blue Beetle, or however they're going to use the guy. Let's see what happens with him.
I would be happy with him being an alternate universe Ted Kord too, where he was Blue Beetle there. You know, I mean, if you're going to bring him back as Blue Beetle, and that being the explanation why there's a second one, you know, he was from, kind of like what we got with Power Girl and Huntress, if I'm making any sense.
Oh, definitely,
But he doesn't have to be Ted Kord. He could be just coming back as Ted Kord. I love what we get from Ray Palmer.
Yeah.
You know, so, I don't know, I'm fine. I'm glad that they kind of go to some of their classic heroes and bring them back. I want to read in the book. I'm excited to see what that looks like. So I guess the short answer is, am I excited about it? Yeah. Are you?
Yeah.
It's cool. Forever Evil's been one of those events. I'm just excited for anything they're doing there. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Was there anything else that you wanted to say?
No, I was just co-signing on your statements.
Hi, Sean and Jim. It's Jack. It's Colin from Michigan again. It's Colin to thank you guys for my Captain America trade that I just got in the mail today from Peds.com. And thank you guys very much every week for a great podcast. And also I wanted to rave about just how awesome you guys are, and also that the first issue of Detective by Manipul, and I want to say Buccellato. Trying to think of the writers' names, but the guys that recently ended the Run Flash, just started Detective Comics 30. Great art, really almost kind of reminded me of almost like a Bruce Timm, Darwin Cook-esque art. The story was really great, how he met someone that was kind of like his mom, and how he also kind of dealt with the fact that some drug dealers were kind of just targeting people, and how that's going to very soon be causing him to act on that on a more personal level. Thank you guys very much every week for a wonderful podcast and for being great friends. Thank you very much for your time. Bye.
Yeah, Jack was a part of our contest for our anniversary show, so he got his book, and actually it looks like I think everybody got their books. There was 4 entries, and we were going to originally give out 3 trades, but when we saw it was 4 people, we're like, I'll just give them to all 4. So thank you for participating in that contest. So thank you for doing that, Jack. We were big fans of that kickoff, and I don't know if it's Brian Buccellato or Buccellato. I butcher it, but they're the team from The Flash that has now gone over to Detective Comics, and Francis Manipul on art, and I probably butcher that name as well. 2 people that I just really love together, and they're kicking off the Detective Comics. We talked about it on the show. Has been really, really welcome.
Yeah, and I would say Buccellato, just because a lot of times I think Boos is more of like an American pronunciation. So if you're going to go old school, it would be, Booch. But that's just my 2 cents. And, artwork, come on, that was awesome. So it's, yeah.
It's the right marriage of everything that you kind of need. It definitely brought Detective Comics to a different level. And I was enjoying it before, but it kind of kicked things up a notch. So I'm glad to see that that's there. And Jack, you're very welcome. It was, and to all of our contest entries, you're very welcome.
Yeah, thanks to everybody who participates in the show, whether it's just simple, just the fact that you guys listen to us and that you want more, you want to hear our rambling sometimes, or the Facebook pages and emails, voicemails, and whatnot. So it's that kind of stuff really. It makes us feel good that somebody actually wants to hear us, because Sean and I could just sit there and hang out and talk comic books on our own, because we do that sometimes. We forget what we talk about in real life and what we talk about on the show. But the fact that there's people out there who want to hear us, really makes us feel good. And so thank you guys. Appreciate it.
It is funny on the phone now, just kind of an aside from what you're saying. We have discussions where we start talking about things on the phone and going, we're doing the episode. We can't do that right now. Let's not talk. We will actually stop ourselves from having a conversation on the phone because it's something we want to discuss on the podcast. Yeah. It's very funny how that changes kind of our communication. Because we talk on this podcast now more than anywhere else. Speaking of the voicemail line, though, I really enjoy hearing from all of you. So our voicemail line is 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. Feel free to call in about anything on your mind. If there's some interesting news tidbit, we try to keep abreast of everything that's going on, and we use, sites like DCinfinite.com to kind of keep us up to date on what's going on in the comic news for DC. But we miss things from time to time. Like, I completely missed the Ted Kord news. And I think that's really cool, because that was I looked on the internet. It was released back in January that news was there, and I don't know how I'd missed that one. But that's cool that kind of stuff is happening. We really appreciate when people call in with something they think, hey, I'd like to hear your thoughts about this. It's interesting. That's what the voicemail line's for. So please think nothing is too small or too big to throw on the podcast. We look at this as being the interactive portion, and we love having you a part of it. So thanks for doing that.
Holy caffeine!
I want to remind everyone about our show website, ragingbullets.com. I do regular updates on where the show is headed, little news tidbits and things like that relating to the podcast and the community. It goes into our Twitter feed and also our Raging Bullets page. We also have links to our show sponsor on the site, and all of our show notes, which has links to often things we discuss on the podcast, are direct on that website as well. So I try to use that as a way to get information out to all of you. Like I said, it is linked to our Twitter account. It's also linked to our Facebook page, which is the Raging Bullets regular Facebook page. We have a Facebook group, which we share now with DCinfinite.com, and it's just a community for talking about DC Comics, but also blogs, podcasts, just various different thoughts and pop culture related. And it's just a wonderful open community that is so beyond our podcast or the DC Infinite site. It's a community of people who care about this industry and want to talk about it. So if you haven't had a chance to join that group, please do. And we're proud to be partners with DCinfinite.com on it as well. I also want to shout out that we're on Google+. We have a regular Google+ page, and I have a personal Google+ page. I also have a personal Facebook page. Please feel free to add me on either of those. I tend to post on Facebook from my personal Facebook page. The Raging Bullets one is meant to be a feed from our podcast itself. So if you want to interact with me directly, please feel free to add my personal Facebook page to yours. And I have all that information on our show website in the About Us section. So please feel free to add that. I look at this as just a large community of people that I want to interact with. I really appreciate you spending time listening to our show, whether you listen casually or to every episode. So I shout these things out because I want you to be a part of our show. Over at DCBService.com, Grayson number 1. Regularly $2.99, 50% off only $1.49. Co-writer Tom King, who's going to be on the book, has been on our show previously. He's a friend of the show, and we really want to support his book. So if you haven't had a chance, pick up issue number 1. See if it's for you. Support Tom. It's great to have one of our own be on one of the DC big books, so I want to support him for that. I want to remind everyone that they are a digital partner, and link your digital accounts that we get 5% of those purchases towards your DCB service order. Speaking of DCB Service, their sister site, InStockTrades.com, has a Nightwing New 52 sale linking in with the Grayson series being launched, and they're putting the first 3 trade paperbacks on sale for 45% off. The first trade paperback and second trade paperback are only $8.24 each. The third trade paperback is only $9.34. This collectively collects 0 through 18 and Batman number 17. So it's a great way to get caught up on Nightwing if you haven't been reading it at a very discounted price. Remember that orders of $50 or more give you free shipping. So it's just a great opportunity to get yourself some collected editions at an amazing discount while saving yourself on shipping as well. I tend to wait and grab a bunch of the books together so that way I get that $50 sweet spot, I should say. So consider doing that with the site. It's really, really cool. Jim, our next episode, we are going to be talking about some of the pieces we were going to talk about on this episode. Before we had planned this episode, we didn't think about the C2E2 news and the fact that we want to discuss some of that with you. So we are going to be talking about Justice League United number 0. We're also going to add in Futures End number 0, seeing as we did talk about the Flash in this episode. Secret Origins number 1, Teen Titans number 30, and All-Star Western number 30. And that'll be our next episode. We will see you then.
Bye!
Flying through space and time, 1,000 different lifetimes. Faded for love and flaws and incredibly clear sightlines. Swinging your mace around, such a practical outlook. Helping the JSA and occasionally supporting your own book. Hawkman, Hawkman. Eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, your plan. What you do to me, Hawkman. The villains are closing in, be they Thenengard or Egyptian. Working so hard to thwart you and Hawkgirl's mission. The odds are not on your side, and danger seems to stack up. Things would be so much easier if you would just call for backup. Hawkman, Hawkman. Eagle eyes can't see your plan and what you do to me. Hawkman, Hawkman. Eagle eyes can't see.